One thing I have noticed time and time again throughout my life is that the day after sexual activity, my face tends to look more drained and my eyes more sunken than usual. I first recognized this in my late teens, when I had no concept of semen retention or anything like that. It is not controversial to say sex takes something out of you. The time leading up to sexual release and the time following it are two completely different physiological states for the man. Before ejaculation, he is filled with energy, passion, and emotion. Seconds after, he becomes exhausted, emotionally drained, and less attracted to the female. The process of ejaculation causes a very strong change in the body, and almost every man knows this feeling. Think about the fluid that leaves a man's body on ejaculation. When you look at this fluid in a microscope, it's absolutely teeming with life. The spermatozoa are swimming around frantically. No other substance in the body displays as much vitality as the semen does. So is it any wonder that loss of this vital substance depletes our own energy and life force? The substance we eject is life itself. It has the ability to forge a new human being when connected to the egg. And it is this life force that makes you attractive. Sperm represents the forces of life and may be compared to a spring exhibiting vital tension. The watch runs with regularity by means of the tension of its elastic spring. If that power is weakened, the friction and resistance of the wheels cause the watch to stop. So it is with man. Expend the semen and the vital force is exhausted, for all of the functions are obedient to its energy. There is nothing left to propel the delicate machinery of the functions, which, from sheer exhaustion, come to rest. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Attractiveness is really just a signal for abundant life. Attractiveness is generally representative of good health, and those in good health create healthy offspring. The female wants to carry over as much life with as high a chance as possible of survival for her offspring. The best to carry the life is the most healthy, and that often means the most attractive. For a woman, choosing attractiveness means choosing a higher chance of survival of her children, and this is her ultimate aim. From this we can extrapolate that activities that severely deplete our organism's integrity may negatively affect the level of attractiveness of the individual. As we know in biology, one of the most energy-intensive processes of the body is reproduction and all that it entails. In order to reproduce, the body utilizes much of its own somatic energy for the purposes of creating a new offspring. This energetic burden in men has been attributed to gonadal activity and semen production, as creating semen and using the body's nutrients and nerve energy is very costly on the organism. If you ever wish to deeper understand the burden of semen production on the organism, simply look at organisms that don't produce semen, that is, spayed, neutered, and castrated creatures, and you will see how much longer their lifespans remain when not reproducing. In almost all animals studied, the difference in lifespan is significant. Many men on retention or sexual abstinence, however, still engage the mind in sexual thought, perhaps even edging, thinking that they are getting away with it as long as they are not releasing. Every sexual excitement is exhaustive in proportion to its intensity and continuance. If a man sits by the side of a woman, fondles and kisses her for 3 or 4 hours, and allows his imagination to run riot with sexual visions, he will be 5 times as much exhausted as he would be by the act culminating in emission. It is the sexual excitement, more than the emission, which exhausts. Thoughts of sexual intimacies, long continued, lead to the worst effects. To a man whose imagination is filled with erotic fantasies, the emission comes as a merciful interruption to the burning, harassing, and wearing excitement, which so constantly goads him. Rioting in visions of nude women may exhaust one as much as an excess in actual intercourse. There are multitudes who would never spend the night with an abandoned female, but who rarely meet a young girl that their imaginations are not busy with her person. This species of indulgence is well nigh universal, and it is the source of all other forms, the fountain from which the external vices spring, and the nursery of masturbation. A young man who allows his mind to dwell upon the vision of nude woman will soon become a victim of ruinous passion, and either fall under the influence of lewd women or resort to self-abuse. The man who has no control over his mind and allows impure thoughts to be associated with the name of every female that may be suggested to his mind is but committing adultery in his heart, just as guilty at heart as though he had committed the deed. So far as the record is preserved, unchastity has contributed, above all other causes, more to the ruin, exhaustion, and demoralization of the race than all other wickedness. And we shall not be likely to vanquish the monster, even in ourselves, unless we make the thoughts our point of attack. How can such an exhausting habit not make its signs clear upon the face and countenance of the individual? The semen is the essential element of human life, and to produce it requires a contribution from our own life source, a redirection of energetic investment from our somatic cells, which supports our own life, to our germline, which supports reproduction. How can we contribute to our germline without losing attractiveness? It is impossible. Everything that contributes to our attractiveness is that which boosts our own life. More life force generally equates to more attractiveness. This is not controversial, we all know this. It is the reason why society generally pays more attention to the youth than the aged. The youthful signs are the signs of life. One writer from the 1800s went deep into details of the physical effects of excessive release, writing, "Let not the intensely prurient, yet seemingly modest victim of self-pollution lay the flattering unction to his soul, that from the eye of his fellow mortals he can conceal his unmanly practices. It is written upon his forehead, the physiognomy, that faithful mirror of the soul and body, gives clear indication of the internal disorder. The complexion and plumpness which jointly confer a youthful look, and which is the sole substitute for beauty, for without this even beauty produces no other effect than cold admiration. This complexion and plumpness are the things that first disappear. A leanness succeeds. The skin becomes rough, often of leaden tinge. The eyes lose their brilliancy, and by their languor express that of the whole frame. The lips lose their vermilion hue, the teeth their whiteness. The hair falls off, and it is no uncommon thing for the whole body to become bent and distorted. Abashed, the sufferer shrinks from the gaze of his fellow man, fancying suspicion in the eye of everyone who looks upon his sunken, haggard, pale, unmeaning, inexpressive face, his dull, lackluster eye, his thin and tremulous form, which all betray him to the practical observer. For self-pollution entails upon its victims marks as legible to the eye that can understand them as the scars of smallpox, and this proves a striking fulfillment of the prophetic warning. There is nothing done in secret that shall not be revealed, nor hidden, even from the recognition of mortals, that shall not ultimately be made, even to them, evident as noonday. Shall we not therefore raise our testimony against these vices? We can see from this description that not only facial features, but the qualities of one's mind influence how others perceive attractiveness. Excessive sexual activity and frequent release were said to deplete a man of his testicular secretions. his very essence of manhood, leaving him more submissive, timid, and effeminate. These traits, when displayed in men, often provoke repulsion rather than attraction. Men who fail to show typical masculine qualities such as bravery, assertiveness, and strength rarely elicit the instinctual feelings of respect or desire from those around them. It is difficult to depict a more truly miserable being than the slave to licentiousness, his imagination burning with filthy, unnatural glow, his bodily organs taxed to the utmost, weary and jaded, refuse to obey the stimulus of that never-slumbering depravity, which goads his fancy in the darkness of night, in the dreams of his broken rest, and in the worse-than-dreamy abstractions of the cheerless day. He is tormented with desires he can never gratify, shut out from those enjoyments accorded only to virtuous moderation, the blossoms of youth, perhaps the flower of manhood, the supremacy of mind, all degraded, obliterated, gone. I have long felt this exhaustion during periods of frequent masturbation and seen directly its effects on interactions with women. After much sexual activity, the passions are dampened and man becomes unable to inject his charm or charisma into the conversation. Conversing with women not long after sex is always exhausting, as we are not only drained but oftentimes in a deflated mental state. Post-ejaculation feelings of guilt or shame are often present. These feelings have an effect on our disposition that we may not realize, but those around us easily pick up on. We often become more timid and nervous in character. Eye contact becomes weaker, and physical movement becomes somewhat hesitant. Our physiological response to these feelings creates an awkwardness in our interactions, and thus rather than feeling attractiveness towards us, females tend to feel apprehensive or even repulsed. It is difficult to accurately articulate this change in the air that occurs when interacting with women as a licentious man, but most of us have experienced it firsthand and thus know exactly what it is this feeling of constant sexual release does to our social relations. For many, their first experiences of semen retention turn such interactions on their head, and for the first time in a long time, they begin to feel their own manhood and manliness again, and through this, attraction builds from the opposite sex. We may even notice receiving more eye contact when out in public, interactions becoming more engaging and exciting, and even people beginning to approach us. It is like something within us has become more magnetic, and people are more inclined to gravitate towards us. Magnetic is exactly what we are becoming. From a biological perspective, the more secretions we conserve, the more substances of man we contain within ourselves. If what divides a man and a woman is the reproductive function and subsequent secretions, then it is exactly these secretions which furnish our manhood. Thus, more abundance of them is more masculinity, and stronger masculinity attracts stronger femininity. These are the opposing poles of sexual attraction, of sexual magnetism. In the great battery of human life, man usually is the primary or positive pole, woman the negative or receptive. The one gives, the other receives. The connection of the one with the other opens a circuit through which the electric forces of the universe flow into both. But in order to construct a perfect battery, the natures of the husband and wife should be attuned to harmony, should be unweakened by abuses. In a word, each should be keyed to harmonious vibrations with the other. Where the conditions are such as these, a store of life energy is gathered in the body, which throws out all worn-out atoms, sends new life into those that are exhausted, revivifies the brain cells, and thus provides a more efficient instrument for mental work. and generates a store of personal magnetism, which inevitably draws to the individual the esteem of the people he deals with, as well as every good thing in the universe. This is the regenerative effect of the sex function, rightly, intelligently, and purely exercised. In today's modern world, the overexpenditure of sexual resources is standard practice. Most men are depleted, and very few are aware of this tremendous power that resides within them, which should not be wasted in sensory indulgence. It is a strange fact that there are many men of intelligence and learning, even of considerable scientific attainment, so blinded by the strength of their sex nature, which they have never learned to curb or control, that they declare that their sex impulse is a divinely implanted instinct which should always be gratified and must never be suppressed under penalty of ill health and nervous diseases of every kind. Think for a moment what this means. A man should give rein to every slightest impulse of sex passion that constantly grows stronger and more dominant because constantly indulged and fostered. He should degrade his divine privileges until they become a foul morass in which he wallows as the swine. He must so fill his nature with sensuality that he is utterly incapable of purity of thought in any direction, and cannot look upon a member of the opposite sex of any age without lewd and sensual thoughts. His very glance towards them becomes an offence. Is such a man free, or is he a slave in chains of his own forging? We often fail to realize that our own life story needs not be verbalized. It is imprinted in our appearance. Just as a drug addict's appearance often reveals his habits, the man consumed by licentiousness, too, cannot hide it. His eyes, his posture, and even the energy he radiates gives him away. It is for this reason that we must become aware of our own sex instinct and seek to gain control of it, lest we become a slave to it. We must aim to develop a chaste mind, a mind that is pure and free from sexual longings and depraved acts. The sex function preserved for procreation and conjugal relations only. The avoidance of spilling the seed in vain. When man develops such a mind, he not only elevates himself, but he elevates those around him, particularly his wife or partner. Good traits and deeds inspire such traits in others. It is up to us men to set this example. This is how degeneracy in society will be defeated. Elevate the moral qualities of the sexes and purify the sex instincts, and men and women will once more be capable of a true and real love, where now they are merely the playthings of an uncontrollable but transient passion. This feeling that will elevate us and our collective consciousness is of course the feeling of love, and this feeling is at odds with the feelings of lust. That is to say, while lust occupies the mind, our ability to feel and express love is diminished, and as such all the wonderful and pure traits that result from love fail to develop. The face of a man consumed by love is strikingly different than the face consumed by lust. We can see a man's loving nature easily in his face. It emanates from his features and expression. Think back to your first love in life. How intense were those feelings? The feelings towards our first love. Most of our first crushes or loves in life are of course unrequited, and this leaves a kind of longing in our hearts. Lust, on the other hand, brings out the negative and selfish traits from within us, and over time these traits lower our trajectory in life. I have noticed this with respect to my own life, that when I was constantly thinking of sexual thoughts, the circumstances of life were much worse. I was having trouble romantically, socially, physically, and of course mentally. I felt like I was dying of some mystery illness and spending much time trying to get a diagnosis. I had blood tests, teeth issues, and had some friends saying they were worried about my appearance. I distinctly remember after entering the workforce that I had no chance to engage in sexual activities for over 6 months, and life drastically improved. Though this abstinence period was unintentional, it really made an impact in my mind. The period before starting work and the period after getting my first apartment were 2 times I was very active sexually, and during both those times, I felt like my life was falling apart in many ways. Most notably on the outside was perhaps my appearance. I felt like I had aged many years in a short time during this period. It began to dawn on me that the periods of sexual abstinence had me looking and feeling much better. And this was about the time I discovered what was called NoFap, which I first started experimenting with. This was years before I ever attempted it long term, and at the time I could only retain for a few days to a week at a time. But even those short abstinence times were having a positive effect. I joined a gym, grew some muscles, and started looking better in the mirror again. People were giving me compliments on my fitter appearance, and I started having more luck dating too. From a first-person perspective, it's very hard to see whether the attraction benefits of semen retention are more to do with physicality or mentality, though I assume it is both. One's mentality is very much entwined in his physiology. When you look better, you feel better, and when you feel better about yourself, other people notice. More people are drawn to you. More opportunities come your way, and your life heads towards a more prosperous future. If you are always thinking sexual thoughts, you are always sending your most valuable arterial blood to the testes, and thus less of it towards all other organs of your body. You may have heard that semen is not made from blood, but in fact it is largely derived from blood-delivered nutrients and materials. The sperm is of course produced in the testes. However, the testes receive blood from the spermatic arteries in order to create sperm. Thus, the process of sperm creation very much directly involves the blood. Written in the 1800s. All eminent physiologists who have written on this point agree that the most precious atoms of the blood enter into the composition of the semen. A healthy man may occasionally discharge his seed with impunity, but if he chooses, with reference to great physical strength and endurance as in the pedestrian, boat racer, prize fighter, or explorer, or with reference to great intellectual and moral work as in the Apostle Paul, Sir Isaac Newton, and 1,000 other instances, to refrain entirely from sexual pleasure, nature well knows what to do with those precious atoms. She finds use for them all in building up a keener brain and more vital and enduring nerves and muscles. It is this oxygenated blood that our body uses to bring life to the organs, to animate the mind, and to keep the body in a healthy state. This pure blood is only a small portion of the total, known as arterial blood. The rest, venous blood, has already delivered much of its oxygen and carries the byproducts of the body's work. While still necessary, it is the arterial blood, vital and full of energy, that transports this life force or energy of nutrition to the parts. If we use this blood for sexual indulgence and excessive sperm production, then there is less of this blood to go around to nutrifying all other organs and processes. Thus, quality of all other aspects of the body will be less due to the less supply of nutrition. And from this we can understand how the visual appearance too will inevitably deteriorate if we excessively divert our bloods towards the sexual organs. This life substance that's present within the blood is said to be all the more refined and potent when converted to semen. Aristotle referred to this life element as the pneuma, and said that it was analogous to the element of the heavenly bodies via the ether. It was said in ancient Greece that when the pneuma was abundant in the body, the result was strength and power. The reason we refer back to such ancient concepts is because there is no scientific quantification of the life force itself. We cannot bottle and measure the life force scientifically in a person, though we are very much aware of its presence. The concept of pneuma perhaps most accurately articulates this force within the body, and Aristotle wrote that the semen was the carrier of pneuma, that it was the principal element of the soul. From my 8 years of semen retention, I very much feel this to be the case. My soul, my life energy, or whatever it is that makes me feel alive, is more abundant within me when retaining. I feel more alive, and after release, this life force feels depleted. It looks depleted. Others sense this depletion and react accordingly. We are not attracted to depleted life. We are attracted by an abundance of it. It is no wonder that the release of such a precious substance alters our appearance, when the very activity drains that force from our body. The body and face of a man constantly releasing is a body that is closer to death. His juices are used up and dried up. He is like a flower wilting away at great speed. Aristotle even contributed the loss of hair to the loss of semen, as it depleted the vital heat from the body, and the first affected part being the scalp and hair. A living man without the substance of life present in his body is known as a zombie. The appearance of a zombie is shocking for the same reasons. Deterioration and absence of life is ugly, it is unattractive, and we feel repulsed by it. These, to a lesser extent, are the feelings and effects of a chronic masturbator. He is releasing that life substance and essentially zombifying his entire being. It is no wonder that others avoid such a man. Remember this the next time you are tempted to start fantasizing. What you hold in your body is the source of life, and releasing that life means your body will show less life. It will attract less and fade away from this world faster than the man who conserves it. So do what it takes to keep your life force inside of you. Good luck. The SR Manuscript, Volume 2. The accumulation of 3 years of research and writings on the topic of semen retention. If you wish to physically own the works of the ancient archives, then this book is for you. I think it goes without saying that any man who commits to the practice of semen retention will become more attractive, as attractiveness is an extension of good health and abundant life force. The extent to which semen retention can improve someone's health and attractiveness will vary for each person, as everyone's habits around sexual release are different. An alcoholic who quits drinking after 30 years may have a very different experience than an alcoholic who quits only after 5 years. The alcoholic of 5 years has avoided 25 years worth of damage, and thus the difference in recovery may appear less apparent. But of course, the 5-year alcoholic is in a much better position, even if the changes are not as noticeable as the 30-year alcoholic, simply due to the fact that they have accumulated less damage. The frequency of their habit also matters, as some may only release occasionally, where others release multiple times a day. On top of this, some people are simply born of better physiological quality than others. Some are born with more symmetrical features, better skin, clearer eyes, a more favorable bone structure, whilst others are born with congenital weaknesses, genetic predispositions, or physical traits that make them more prone to certain diseases. Attractiveness on semen retention can be understood this way. We are all born with different physiological traits which set the boundaries of our natural attractiveness. However, within those limits, there is still considerable room for improvement, allowing us to move from less attractive to more attractive, depending on how we manage our health, energy, and vitality. I believe semen retention to hugely influence our attractiveness markers, because as we have seen in studies on organisms that do not produce and release a seminal secretion, women and eunuchs, their life expectancy is greatly increased in comparison with semen-secreting males. Slower aging means slower physical decline, allowing a man to retain the youthful qualities that contribute to his attractiveness for longer. For these reasons, when considering your own attractiveness on semen retention, rather than comparing yourself to others or rating your attractiveness with a number, it is far more useful to compare your current state of attractiveness to your previous state of attractiveness. I think any man retaining completely for at least 6 to 12 months will notice a marked improvement in their physical form, particularly when it comes to their eyes, complexion, and face. Long before you started semen retention, perhaps you noticed your face looking worse on days after masturbation, a dullness in the eyes, deeper troughs around the cheeks, pale-looking skin, or more blemishes appearing. I think a lot of men have experienced this before and are aware, perhaps even unconsciously, of this connection on some level. If you trace back to the times where your face was looking worse, you may find that they also coincided with times you experienced high sexual frequency and semen release. It is perhaps hard to imagine just how intricately connected the genitals are to the appearance of the face. Consider this. When in an aroused state, it is not uncommon for the face to flush. The bloods travel to the face and the cheeks become bright red. Also, the feeling of fear is often felt in the gonads and brings about a pale complexion to the face. This is said to be related to the fight or flight response. When you're afraid, your sympathetic nervous system ramps up. Blood is redirected to your vital organs, and non-essential processes like reproduction are temporarily suppressed. The face and the state of the genitals seem to be intricately connected, and this is why I believe semen retention has such a profound influence over the facial appearance. I can say this with confidence as much of it comes from personal experience. Starting with the eyes, perhaps the most important feature of the face. It has been said that poor features with good eyes are preferable to poor eyes with good features. The eyes transmit so much of our inner world, so much of our biology, our state of health and vitality. It is no wonder they are referred to as the windows of the soul. A man depleted in semen from excessive release has often reported dull and depleted eyes. Aristotle wrote that out of all parts of the head, the eyes are the most seminal, and that those who overindulge in sex develop a sunken look in their eyes. It was written in the 1800s, all false sexual excitements causing seminal losses in males and undue passion in females report themselves in the eyes. Those who know can pick out such, and also those husbands and wives who prevent issues by premature withdrawals, as far as they can, get a good look into their eyes. Girls, those beaux whose eyes have a dull, sleepy, listless, downcast, vacant, glaring, glazed, leaden, spiritless, or lascivious, leering, vulgar, lustful look out of them, will be much less satisfactory as husbands than those who have bright, sunny, clear, pure, loving eyes. The former may be better than none, but are poor critters. Red ribbons around eyelids indicate sexual inflammation and passion in its more animal, sensuous aspect, while a bluish, azure, leaden-covered white of the eyes indicates sexual exhaustion, impotence in the male, barrenness and passivity in the female. Seminal losses in men are indicated by this white of the eyes having a pale, yellowish, greasy aspect. Even today, it is well known that many sexual conditions reveal symptoms of the ailment in the eyes. The Swiss physician Tissot in the 1700s made mention of this connection of the eyes and face with semen loss. A loss of colour or an earthy tint of the countenance, a violet appearance of the eyelids, a languid expression of face, an air of fatigue and nonchalance. When the patient rises from bed, a difficulty in getting up, are all signs which may lead to the discovery of this pernicious habit. Here we might trace the physical state produced by onanism, if this had not already been done. As Tissot writes, here it is not only the eyes that are changed through seminal emissions, it is the overall appearance of the face, the countenance, as they used to say. In my own experience, my face looked its worst during 2 distinct phases of my life when sexual activity was high. Interestingly, those were also times when I received the least attention from the opposite sex. In both cases, I had recently moved to a new city, felt isolated, and found myself turning to adult content more often. During these times, I had even received a few comments or concerns that my eyes were looking dark and my face wasted. My cheeks seemed dull and my complexion was of an unhealthy color. As my father suffered from a serious health condition, I became concerned that I may have inherited it. However, after visiting the hospital for blood tests, I was told there were no signs of the illness in my results. I was very worried about my health at this time, and I think that is what fueled my interest in this subject. Due to circumstance rather than conscious choice, I reduced this habit as I became a full-time worker and made new social connections. A year or so after, my face improved and I began to look more healthy again. It was also at this time that I started to receive more interest from women and began to have more luck in dating. I didn't connect any of these dots at the time, of course, but it seems obvious now that I think of it. It has been over a decade since this time period, and looking back on it now, I feel my face looks healthier now than it did back then, even having aged over 10 years. If you haven't noticed this difference before, I suggest you pay it some attention and see if you experience the same difference in appearance between times when you are releasing and times when you are abstaining. I sense that most people who have been retaining for a while may already be somewhat aware of this difference in appearance. Your testes are very closely connected to the adrenal glands, and thus exhaustion of the testes would likely have a significant impact on the state of the adrenals. Adrenal fatigue is also well known for its signs in the face. Symptoms such as sunken eyes, dark circles, and pale complexion, all of which are also mentioned as symptoms in those overindulging in sex and masturbation. The process of ejaculation and orgasm is said to have a tremendous impact on the nervous system. Bernard writes, "It is clear that there is an important internal physiological relation between the secretions of the sex glands and the central nervous system, that the loss of these secretions, voluntarily or involuntarily, exercises a detrimental effect on the nutrition and vitality of the nerves and brain, while on the other hand, the conservation of these secretions has a vitalizing effect on the nervous system, a regenerating effect on the endocrine glands, and a rejuvenating effect on the organism as a whole." The face and appearance of a masturbator has come up often in old works, alluding to the idea that a man practicing this habit could not hide his habit, for in trying to, he would be instantly betrayed by his own appearance. There is not a single form of sensualism that is not branded with its external, yet significant mark of recognition. Let not the intensely prurient, yet seemingly modest victim of secret pollution lay the flattering unction to his soul, that from the eye of his fellow mortals he can conceal his unmanly vice. It is written upon his forehead. It is enstamped upon his visage, his sunken countenance, his pale, unmeaning, inexpressive face, his lustreless eyes, his attenuated frame, his quick, abashed retreat from the gaze of virtuous women. All proclaim the enfeebled votary of solitary vice, or worse than monk obscene. Here then is one form of the fulfillment of that prediction. There is nothing done in secret that shall not be revealed, neither hid, even from men, that shall not be known, how much more intimately to the omniscient God. It is fabled of the ostrich that she is so devoid of reasoning intelligence as to hide her head from her pursuers in the nearest thicket, unconscious that her enormous body is unconcealed. And can a stronger illustration be afforded of the effects of sensualism in darkening the understanding than is found in the fact that the victims of solitary vice dare to gratify the depraved propensity in the admitted gaze of the omnipresent eye? Horrible perversity of nature's keenest pleasure! How stupefying is that infatuation, which deliberately yet secretly poisons the power of manly enjoyment, deprives the Lord of this fair world of those temperate gratifications which the great author of creation has permitted, nay, positively enjoined and commanded. Increase and multiply that ye may replenish the earth, is alike the dictate of nature and revelation. The suffering then of the violator of this provision, his living death, is but the first consequence of his criminality. From the 1800s. The patient was in appearance a typical masturbator. He was small, emaciated, hollow-chested, thin-necked, weak-kneed, shambling in his gait, careless in his dress and person. In his deep-set eyes rested the shadow of despair. His pale, hollow cheeks and general expression of moral abasement were sufficiently indicative of the practice that had brought him to this condition. All of these traits reflect a lack of vitality and aesthetic appeal, qualities strongly associated with unattractiveness, and are far more likely to repel a fertile woman than draw her in. Consider the flower. When a flower begins to bloom, it enters its reproductive phase, and in doing so accelerates its own aging. As established by summer theory, reproduction draws vital resources away from bodily maintenance, hastening decline. The old adage, early to ripe, early to rot, captures this trade-off. The earlier or more intensely a flower reproduces, the more it may do so at the cost of its beauty and longevity. Conversely, when reproductive activity is limited, the flower often remains fresh and intact for longer. Studies in plant biology have shown that blooms which are unpollinated or have reduced reproductive output tend to age more slowly, retaining their form and color longer than their fertile counterparts. With fewer resources diverted towards reproduction, aging is delayed. In restraint there is preservation. The keeping of a youthful face signifies the vitality of the organism beneath it, an organism that ages slower and with grace. When we talk about a glowing face and complexion as a result of semen retention, we are talking about a slowing down of the aging process. That the aging process slows due to reduced reproduction is undeniable and runs throughout nature. If attractiveness can be gained through sexual abstinence, then we must ask what makes one successfully abstain. That lies in your choice of thoughts. This all comes down to the thoughts you allow your mind to entertain. This is where you will have most difficulty. You must not allow thoughts of a perverted nature to dwell within you, as they will ultimately lead to relapse and semen loss. In order to do this, you must have a very strong reason why not to entertain sexual thoughts. I have found it helpful to see sexual thoughts as parasites that are so dangerous that infiltration of the mind will strip away all my noble traits of manhood. Of course, I am not successful 100% of the time, but with a strict view on the dangers of lustful thought, my mind can more easily avoid those ideas altogether. When we think of masturbation as harmless or inconsequential, then of course we don't feel as compelled to avoid it. For any retainer that has already successfully retained for some time and seen various benefits, it would be wise to understand that the entertainment of sexual thoughts could unravel all of those benefits you have so diligently worked for. You must hold on to those benefits and allow them to grow. The only thing you need to do is think pure thoughts and eliminate lustful ones. Occasionally they will return uninvited, and at that time you just need to think of something more interesting or perhaps change your physical state. If you're sitting still, then get moving. If you are awake in bed, then get out of bed and put your phone away. You know, don't you, that if people wish to safeguard valuable things from robbers, they put them in a safe. The greater its value, the stronger the vault, the stronger the safe. Your greatest treasure is the purity of your soul. Build then an impenetrable wall around this treasure and install every safety device to protect it from robbers, from the dark spirits of sin who covet your treasure. Guard your thoughts, all your words, glances, actions, and exercise the greatest care to avoid the first false step, because the first moral fall is easily followed by a second, and by a 10th also. You know now that your entire future may lie in the balance, and that the few years' struggle during which you have to show perseverance is really no hardship, but an opportunity for self-expression. Yes, it is the time during which you are called upon to show whether by noble and skillful artistry you can mold yourself into a manly character, or that you cannot. Limit the activity of reproduction and your organism will carry less burden and live longer. You will age slower and as a result retain more youth, more beauty, and more energy. Your presence will be more felt, your words will carry more weight, even your scent will be more attractive, because all aspects of your form will emanate more signs of life and vitality. Every aspect of you will be inherently more attractive than the version of you that dissipates their energy into the channels of sex and masturbation. Don't let the force escape. Keep it within you, and it will radiate through your entire being. Use that energy for living, for sharpening your mental faculties, for improving your body and strengthening your physicality. Your energy is finite. Be very wary of which channels you decide to direct it to, as the more one channel gets, the less the other channel receives. Sexual abstinence is a small price to pay for a rich, rewarding life. You will find no greater secret to living long and well than retaining your seminal energy. If you crush a cockroach, you're a hero. If you crush a beautiful butterfly, you're a villain. Morals have aesthetic criteria. The SR manuscript. 2 years of writing and research on the topic of semen retention. If you wish to physically own a copy of the ancient archives, then this book is for you. Your face matters in society. People who are perceived of as more attractive are seen as inherently more valuable than less attractive people by a large portion of the world. If attractiveness were a house, then facial attractiveness is the door to that house, and without a good-looking face, many people will simply choose not to open the door. The world values physical attractiveness, because physical attractiveness implies good genetic stock and good health signifies survival. It implies life over death, and is necessary for the successful continuation of the species. Those that weren't blessed with top-tier genetics may feel disheartened with this information, though I would encourage you to see it as knowledge that can empower you. If you are upset, you are simply taking this too seriously. The world is a stage. The Creator has given you a role to play, and now you must play it. Every weakness carries within itself an equal strength. It is true that your life may be more challenging due to your looks, and you will find you have to work harder for opportunities that are more frequently offered to your more attractive counterparts. Try to understand, though, that you have acquired a blessing in disguise. Much like any other game, playing life on hard mode makes you a better player. Having less opportunity forces you to try harder, and as a result pushes your skills and insights far further than your competitors playing life on easy mode can reach. This negative reinforcement can quickly bring you into the upper echelons of your field. Those handsome souls that everybody adores get to breeze through life in comfort without much negative criticism. though without this criticism they will find it harder to sharpen their mind, skills, and develop a burning desire for success. We see this often with the children of celebrities failing to reach the mark of success that their parents did, perhaps due to a pampered life. Do not yearn for a pampered life. That is not why you are here. You are here for something more important: to do big things. Strong ambition does not arise from comfort and praise. You can't learn about your weak points and work to strengthen them when surrounded by yes men. Everybody wants to please the handsome man, and so the handsome man will often be shielded from the ugly side of human nature, and for that reason they may find it harder to get down to the deepest truths of nature and life. Perhaps this is why we attached the meaning of both beauty and stupidity to the stereotype blonde or dumb blonde, as the beautiful often become this way through a pampered life. This is not to say all handsome people are stupid, just as all ugly people are not intelligent. But there is perhaps a negative and positive to both sides you should recognize. Being born either handsome or unattractive both carry their burdens and merits, and thus you should not long after one more than the other. They may push you into different areas in life, but the road to success and good living is achievable in either position. Attractiveness is an easy road, but it can make life hard. Unattractiveness is the hard road that can make life easy. The so-called unattractive man gets the truth of human nature shown to him almost every day. It's usually a painful lesson, but a very valuable one. Regardless of your position, this is the game to be played, and crying about your character is the weakest move on the board. Contrary to popular opinion, however, much of our attractiveness can be shaped over time. That is because the more time that passes over our body, the more our actions, habits, and environment shape the current physical state that we reside in. There are limits, however, due to the genetics we have to work with. But within everyone's genetic allotment, there is much room to shift the bar of attractiveness up or down the scale. There are plenty of people who were considered not so attractive in their youthful years, yet became significantly more attractive by middle age, and vice versa. We all know the story of the ugly duckling. The rate at which we age is largely within our control. How does semen retention improve one's face? Often there are reports by retainers of looking more attractive and youthful when on semen retention. Some will argue that it is a placebo effect that results from enhanced confidence, though there is much evidence to support the claim of a physical improvement related to semen retention. First, let us look at some aspects of what is deemed as unattractive. Aging. As we age, signs of deterioration make themselves visible in the face. Facial adiposity, or the perception of weight in the face, is said to be an accurate indicator of one's level of health and attractiveness. Various studies have established a relationship between facial adiposity and perceived attractiveness and health. Fat loss in the face is often associated with aging, whereas abundant levels of adipose tissue, also known as baby fat, tend to signal youth and vitality. Signs of youthfulness indicate health, and signs of health are perceived as attractive. For someone that is not suffering from obesity, the general tendency of the face as it ages is to lose volume and facial fat in the deep fat compartments of the face. These are the areas that exude youth. The face also loses muscle and bone density, as does the rest of the body. The cheeks become more hollow. Facial contours change shape. Darkened circles appear under the eyes. Shadows become more pronounced, and an overall loss of volume becomes visually apparent. Even if the face gains weight from an overall body fat increase, the areas in which the adipose tissues signify youthfulness tend to dissipate. In some extreme cases of this fat loss, the face starts to show signs of emaciation. In the past, it was said that chaste living could prevent this onset of facial aging. The renowned Swiss doctor Tissot connected excess sexual activity and semen loss to emaciation. He furthermore writes how the excess loss of seminal fluid blocks nutrition, weakens the body, and affects development. The common thread between sexual activity and facial adiposity is cholesterol. The sex hormones are derived from cholesterol. Cholesterol plays various important roles in the body, such as the production of cell membranes, hormones, and vitamin D. It also plays a major role in brain health and neurotransmitter communication, the brain being the most cholesterol-rich organ of the body. Studies have suggested that mid to higher levels of cholesterol in advanced age are associated with higher cognitive performance. The study even suggests that lower levels of cholesterol may in fact be linked to cognitive decline. The ongoing production of sex hormones from one that is in a constantly stimulated sexual state would require a continuous supply of this cholesterol from the body and brain. A constant drain in this regard could well be burdensome to our physiological functioning. As adipose tissue is the main storage area of cholesterol, perhaps we can see how Tissot's assertion that sexual excess drains fat stores and leads to emaciation is based on the principle that excess sexual activity requires an abundant supply of cholesterol. Could it be this constant utilization of cholesterol in sexually excessive individuals that brings about these facial changes and early signs of aging? There is no concrete evidence here, though the connection does appear reasonable, at least from my own point of view. Furthermore, we know that reproduction shortens lifespan in animals and plants, and that castrated animals and plants generally live longer. If we assume that organisms that live longer age slower, then the retention of our semen and avoidance of reproductive activities such as sex and ejaculation should slow down our biological process of aging and thus preserve our youthful appearance for longer. In short, semen retention appears to slow natural deterioration and thus preserve one's youth and beauty for longer. This could well be the reason people on semen retention often experienced enhanced physical attractiveness and facial aesthetics. We see a similar process of degeneration taking place in the hair. The connection between hair and sex hormones is very well established. Over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle made the claim that baldness was a result of lack of vital heat caused by sexual intercourse. Those that don't produce semen, women and castrated men, do not develop AGA or male pattern baldness. Conversely, in dogs, castration is sometimes used to treat hair loss. Of course, castration is dangerous for humans for many other reasons and is not recommended. We must consider that if halting production of these sex hormones is beneficial for the hair, then overproduction of such hormones must be detrimental to the hair. Balding is a sign of aging and degeneration of the organism. If reproduction and reproductive activity accelerate aging, then it is logical to presume that this too may accelerate hair loss. Semen retention prevents the overuse of the testes in the production of sex hormones, and thus could be beneficial for preventing hair loss and maintaining one's attractiveness. This is again not verified scientifically by any particular study. We are merely following a course of logical outcomes. The eyes are often said to be the most attractive feature of the person. They have been referred to as the exclamation points of the face and the windows of the soul. Aristotle wrote that the eyes are very much connected with the semen. He noted that those who over-frequently indulged in sexual intercourse had the appearance of sunken eyes. The eyes are directly linked to the brain through the optic nerve, and thus much of the brain's condition is transmitted to the eyes. We know that the brain and the testes are very similar in protein and constituents, and it has been long thought that excess in testicular activity may come at a cost to brain activity. On the topic of Casper's research, R. Bernard wrote, "The fluids elaborated by the testes, the prostate gland, and the accessory sex glands are very rich in phosphorus, as are the spermatozoa themselves. The loss of semen must therefore lower the phosphorus content of the blood, for it is from here that these glands derive the phosphorus for the manufacture of their secretions. This must deprive the nervous system of an element so necessary for its nutrition and normal well-being. This explains the neurasthenic effects of masturbation and sexual excess, which are due to loss of phosphorus through seminal emissions. If we are to recognize the preservation of semen as being of value to the brain, then by extension, we should perhaps see this benefit reflected in the eyes. Or to put simply, semen preservation may enhance the eye's appearance and thus improve facial attractiveness. Again, this is not verified and at this point remains just a theory. The elixir of youth. Over a century before, the Austrian physiologist Professor Steinach made major discoveries on the relationship between testosterone and estrogen, and much of his work went to shape modern-day hormonal medicine. Steinach conducted many experiments on man and animals to test hormone therapies and treatments. Among his experiments, he set out to restore youth to the organism and did this through the manipulation of testicular secretions. Through his experiments, Steinach concluded that the process of aging was reversible through the restriction of testicular secretions. In rats, Steinach was able to restore the endocrine glands to a youthful state, induce new growth of hair, and regenerate body tissues, particularly of the heart and brain. We know through the process of puberty that the introduction of sex hormones brings about maturation of the organism, and furthermore we have seen that prevention of this sex hormone through neutering of animals increases life expectancy, and thus perhaps slows the process of aging in the organism. Since the semen contains sex hormones by conserving it rather than wasting it through sexual indulgence, these valuable hormones are saved and resorbed into the circulation, where they act as general physiological catalysts and endocrine activators, exercising a revitalizing effect on all cells, body and brain. If the preservation of these fluids slows the process of aging, then it also slows the process of organism degeneration and thus enhances our attractiveness, or at the very least prevents it from degenerating into unattractiveness. This would presumably have a significant impact on not only our facial attractiveness, but our overall physical state of health. In this sense, we can understand how the preservation of our sexual hormones may in fact keep us more good-looking for longer, and thus we gain access to the elixir of youth. The answer to most of life's problems is simply be more attractive. The more good-looking you are, the more favorably you are perceived by others. Not by everyone, there are exceptions, but on a large scale, this generally rings true. People strongly consider your attractiveness when sizing you up, your value as a person. Most people aren't even aware that they're doing it. People associate good qualities with attractiveness and bad qualities with ugliness. It sounds largely discriminatory, but there is perhaps some intelligence in this. This is not to say that ugly equates to bad, or that unattractive people deserve less attention. But attractiveness is generally the result of good genes and good health, and the maintenance of good health requires good habits. Youthfulness is an inherent part of beauty, which is soon destroyed by unhealthy habits of living. Habits that often arise from the emotion of desire, be that drug addiction, sex addiction, food addiction, and so forth. Over time, many of these habits become etched into the face. We can visually recognize the appearance of a drug addict, a chronic smoker, a glutton, a sex addict, and so on. These habits become a part of the face, and thus the face tells a story of that person's own habits, of that person's life. And it is in this way we can perhaps judge a book by its cover. While it's not always accurate, and exceptions do exist, a person's facial appearance will often reveal aspects of their background, behavior, disposition, and even potential risk. An unattractive face is often a sign of having endured negative experience, while an attractive face often reflects positive conditions and an environment supportive of balanced development. Negative experiences are always harmful and destructive in some way, and the ultimate result of destruction is death. We humans carry a strong aversion towards death and an innate attraction towards life. As beauty is generally a marker of one's health, we could say that attractiveness signifies life, at least in the eyes of others. And as we are all attracted to life, we are attracted to beauty. Conversely, most people carry a distaste towards unattractiveness. The answer to this problem is simple. Just be more attractive. Choose the best genetic stock to be born from, and you will look 10 out of 10. That's it. That's the answer to this riddle. Obviously, this isn't something we can achieve, so here's the next best approach. Become as attractive as your genetic potential allows you to be. There is a lot more room to move up the scale of attractiveness than you may think. Become more healthy, and as a result, you will become more attractive. Secondly, learn to care less about others' opinions and build a lifestyle free from people whose company you don't enjoy. If this video got your attention, it's likely because you care deeply about how others perceive you, and to some extent, we all do. The way we think others perceive us often dictates the types of behaviors and actions we take around them. We become controlled by their perceptions. Break free from this. It is not easy, but it is possible if you wish to. And the resulting feeling you get from not caring about how others perceive you or judge you is very freeing. Your concerns about your looks and social standing within the group keep you in a sort of behavioral prison, in which the people's negative thoughts about you can exert influence over your own behavior, over your own thoughts about life. Disconnect from this. There is no need to take the thoughts of others so seriously. If you do this, over time, the control that society has over you will begin to fade. The ideal human organism will have an optimal distribution of height, weight, muscle, and body fat. Height is the factor we have least control over, but weight, muscle, and body fat can be adjusted through lifestyle, exercise, and diet. I won't go into details here because all the information you need to improve your body type can be found at no cost on YouTube. Those overweight should lose weight. Those underweight should gain it. Those with excess body fat should gain more muscle and lose the fat. This is all quite self-explanatory. But the more you get your body towards the ideal measurements, the more you will feel people begin to respect you. Those that are far outside this ideal of standard measurement will often be seen as less attractive, and thus will suffer socially from this. Humans tend to look down on those they see as less healthy and genetically inferior. Often they will just overlook them completely. Humans often unconsciously assign less social value to those they deem as extremely overweight or extremely underweight. This is because they see no benefit in associating with them. In fact, associating with them may even negatively impact their own perceived value. For the most part, humans want to be around those who have similar or higher social value than themselves. Humans are opportunistic animals, and we all seek to elevate ourselves as high as we can within the social sphere. More important than body, however, is facial aesthetics. The causes of unattractiveness in the face are so varied and numerous that each person may have to take a very different approach to optimize their features. But one thing that can be said is that a good face generally reflects good health. So before considering the finer points of facial aesthetics, get yourself into a healthy lifestyle. A good sleep schedule, an early sleep routine over time will do wonders for your face, especially for those who are night owls and spend many nights after sundown staring at screens. These habits will drain your beauty significantly. The next is healthy eating. In my case, I stopped eating bread and wheat over a year and a half ago, and my dry skin issues have since resolved themselves. I eat a diet consisting of mainly meats, vegetables, some fruits, and rice. Another important point is the avoidance of sexual indulgence and excess. In biology, it is said that reproductive activity comes at the cost of lifespan of the organism. This is known as the disposable summer theory of aging. In males, acceleration of age has been associated with gonadal activity. So it appears logical that conservation of these energies would be beneficial to overall longevity, speed of aging, and thus appearance of youthfulness. A chaste or celibate life for the sake of longevity is an ancient teaching found in Hindu, Taoist, and Kabbalistic traditions. If you have autoimmune inflammation issues, perhaps an elimination-style diet such as keto or carnivore is a good place to start. Your next step for better health is to quit a workplace that constantly stresses you. Stress should not be avoided completely, and some stress is beneficial, but if it starts to affect your well-being, you should change jobs. Whether you can actually do this or not depends on your situation, but if you're on the fence, give it serious thought. My last job gave me much stress and anguish, and quitting for a lower-paying job was actually the best choice I had made in a long time. If you're losing your hair, either shave it or take steps to address it. A hair transplant or medications are possible options, though the meds could conflict with your health goals. Ultimately, you'll need to make that decision for yourself. Although not everyone can reach the peak of human attractiveness, most people can raise their appearance by a couple of points, if they truly dedicate themselves to improvement. I'm not saying you have to do this. In fact, it may be smarter to invest that energy into something more financially worthwhile and care less about how others perceive you. But young people are vain, as I was for decades, so I understand if beauty and mating are your current priorities. If your goals in life revolve around human connections and networking, then becoming more attractive will be far more of value to you. The SR Manuscript. 2 years of writing and research on the topic of semen retention. If you wish to physically own the works of the ancient archives, then this book is for you. What makes masturbation so appealing to man? The short experience of orgasm is overwhelming. It temporarily shocks all thoughts, positive or negative, out of the mind. For a brief moment, it feels like bliss. But that moment passes quickly, and for many men, it leaves behind an even deeper feeling of loss, of exhaustion. For many of us living day to day, many stresses come up in life. They are usually tied to social relationships, a friend, a work colleague, a lover. Many of our feelings of stress in the background of our minds have a lot to do with the state of our relationships we have with others. When our social relations are going well, there is usually an ease of feeling in the back of the mind. There were times in my life where I felt more popular than others, and during those times I experienced a greater sense of confidence and well-being. I also think I felt less compelled to masturbate in those periods where social relations were best. When our relations with others become strained or complicated, A heavy mental weight sets in. When I have to interact with people I don't like on a regular basis, it creates unease and causes some distress. It has usually been at these times that masturbation was most appealing. It serves as a sort of remedy for the social strain or stresses I was dealing with at the time. Periods of loneliness or having to be around someone I didn't very much care for always induced such feelings of wanting to escape. At the time, I thought masturbation was harmless or even a therapeutic exercise. But as we all begin to learn, the after effects seem to carry their own set of negatives, and these negatives seem to further exacerbate my worries. We often overlook the role our physical state plays in shaping our social interactions. Our physical condition colors the way in which people perceive us. Essentially, people don't want to be around sick, weak, and low-energy types of people. They seek to find people that are attractive, energetic, outgoing, and healthy. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule, but in general, this seems to be the case. For these reasons, a man who is chronically depleting himself of vitality is also making himself a less attractive social partner in the eyes of others. That is to say, the very activity he uses to seek refuge from his social pains only further strains his relations with others and his progress in life. The quality of your visual appearance is very much related to the quality of your own semen. Your visual appearance is a reflection of your overall health. It also reveals the health of your ancestors through your physiology. A man born from a long line of strong, healthy people will generally look more attractive than a man whose lineage is marked by weakness and sickness. Genetics matter, and other people treat good genetics with admiration and respect. While you can't choose the ancestors you came from, you have significant power to improve your own level of attractiveness within your genetic limits. Within these limits, you have the ability to influence the state of your organism towards health and attractiveness, or towards ugliness and degeneration. While exceptions do exist, health tends to equate to attractiveness, and studies show that attractive men have higher semen quality. What we call good looks may really be nature's way of signaling good genes and healthy semen. Again, you are a walking billboard advertising your semen quality to the opposite sex. Semen quality has been linked particularly to men's facial attractiveness. Studies have shown that facial attractiveness is positively correlated with semen quality. This means that outward appearance may serve as an honest signal of reproductive fitness. And this is perhaps why we favor attractiveness, because of what it implies about the organism. When semen is constantly depleted through frequent masturbation, a man's appearance and reproductive health may suffer. A 1993 study by Sophistikis and Miyagawa found that masturbation was linked to lower seminal plasma volume, sperm count, and motility compared to semen collected during intercourse. Reinforcing this, a 1986 study by Purvis et al. Showed that semen after masturbation contains fewer vital biochemical compounds necessary for prostate health and sperm function. This suggests that masturbation not only reduces semen quality, but may also impair the prostate's ability to eliminate waste and create a nourishing environment for sperm, together indicating that frequent masturbation could negatively affect both semen quality and male reproductive health. Your seminal secretions play a very important role in making your organism more attractive to potential mates, and anything that hinders the production and circulation of these secretions, such as frequent ejaculation or even castration, reduces the organism's overall health and attractiveness. Studies have shown animals that are depleted in semen or unable to produce secretions to be less attractive to the opposite sex. There is evidence across multiple species showing that by the end of the mating season, males tend to exhibit lower semen quality and quantity, implying that the frequent loss of semen may negatively affect both the production and quality of future ejaculates. An animal's most attractive period tends to be right at the end of the off-season or the very beginning of the mating season, after a long stretch of time of having conserved their sexual secretions. When they have fully developed their secondary sexual traits, this is when their physical condition is at its peak. You will find peacocks with their most beautiful feathers, deer with their most developed antlers, and mandrills displaying their brightest facial coloration and largest body size. Semen retention for humans is much like the off-season for animals. When your semen is conserved and allowed to accumulate, more energy is allowed for the maintenance of your physical body. This goes down to the mitochondrial level. When the burden of reproduction is eased, your body invests more energy into the maintenance of your cells and organs and bloods. This creates a healthier, more well-functioning body, and as a result, the organism becomes more attractive, more appealing to the opposite sex. Perhaps animals use this non-mating window to build up their attractive powers, to secure the optimal mates come mating season. There are studies in biology showing that in some animal species, physical attractiveness, as judged by mates, correlates with semen or sperm quality. The idea comes from the good genes hypothesis. Females may prefer males with traits that signal underlying health, including fertility. A few examples can be seen across different groups of animals. In birds, barn swallows with more symmetrical tail feathers and brighter coloration often have higher sperm quality, including motility and concentration. Zebra finch studies also show links between ornamentation and sperm performance. In fish, guppies with brighter male coloration are associated with better sperm motility and viability, which makes them more successful in sperm competition. In mammals, some primate studies have found that facial masculinity and condition correlate with semen parameters. I tie this to semen retention for one specific reason. Losing semen is losing semen quality. Studies indicate that frequent ejaculation depletes semen quality. In many seasonal breeders, semen strength and quality peak at the beginning of the mating season, following a prolonged period of conservation during the non-breeding season. As the mating season progresses and ejaculation becomes more frequent, these reserves are gradually depleted, leading to a noticeable decline in sperm quality. In other words, excessive loss of semen can weaken the subsequent semen quality. Now apply this to a man heavily engaged in masturbation or sexual activity. He is constantly losing his semen, and thus it would be reasonable to assume his semen quality is lower. As we have found, those with lower semen quality seem to have a lower level of attractiveness, perhaps in part due to the physiological burden excessive reproduction has on the body. And again, an animal, after having retained its sexual energies in the off-season, reaches peak attractiveness. Is this not the same as a retainer who has conserved his sexual energies over a long period of time? I think the logic here is simple. Preserve your semen and you lower the burden of reproduction on the body, and over time this allows your body to invest more heavily in your health, and as a result you become more attractive. This is your natural state. You are not meant to be losing your sexual energies constantly. Animals seem to be innately aware of this sacrifice, and thus in the wild we see animals abstaining for long periods of the year. They are avoiding the unnecessary costs of reproduction. They practice semen retention instinctively for long periods, and only break when it's time to procreate. If you wish to extend your time on Earth and be more healthy, and better looking whilst you are here, then I strongly recommend you retain your seed. Demons look like deformed humans. Humans that have degenerated, monstrous in appearance, and far away from any image of beauty. These descriptions are not far off from how the private sensualist or onanist was described as in the old books. Some believed a man spilling his seed was losing the essence of his own body. It was considered the gravest sin. To willingly lose one's seed for pleasure was considered to be a violation of nature's law. What becomes of such a man? I want you to consider side by side a pure man who spends his days working, perhaps loving a partner or giving to his community. Then consider the sensualist who dwells in constant thoughts of sexual indulgence and debauchery, who prioritizes sexual pleasure over all other aspects and cares less for others than he does for the satisfaction of his carnal urge. How starkly contrasted are these two men, both in character and appearance. What is the fundamental difference between them? If we stripped everything back, I believe the pure man exists in a state of love, whereas the sensualist exists in a state of want. The lustful man will never satisfy that what he is craving. It will always elude him. He may satisfy the craving for a short time upon release, though it will always come flooding back, often with a vengeance. The sensualist's urge gets stronger, his ceiling of depravity gets higher, and he increases his willingness to forsake anything that gets in the way of his sexual longings. This is the man that develops the tendencies of a demon, of the devil, a man that is so rooted to physical pleasure that he spends his life fantasizing and living in pursuit of sexual encounter. The seed, which many philosophers consider the soul of man, is what the sensualist willingly sacrifices for the pursuit of his sexual hobby. He sacrifices his own essence, his very soul, for the sake of pleasure. The more he indulges, the less of him remains. He becomes somewhat of a parasitic entity, a succubi, feeding on the desire at the cost of his own body and eventually his own life. Look into the eyes of a carnal man, and you will see the makings of the devil. The eyes of the devil reveal his true character, as do the eyes of a sensualist. The eyes indicate sexual ailments. All the world knows that reddish, livid spots under the inner corners of the eyes indicate the beginning of sexual complaints, and that, as these ailments augment, this discoloration deepens and extends, so that black and blue semicircles under the eyes indicate sexual impairments. Let these complaints redouble, and this discoloration still deepens, and extends all around and above the eyes, which become sunken, dark-looking, yellowish, brownish, and have a bad appearance. Get a good look into their eyes. Girls, those beaux whose eyes have a dull, sleepy, listless, downcast, vacant, glaring, glazed, leaden, spiritless, or lascivious, leering, vulgar, lustful look out of them, will be much less satisfactory as husbands than those who have bright, sunny, clear, pure, loving eyes. The former are poor critters. Red ribbons around the eyelids indicate sexual inflammation and passion in its more animal, sensuous aspect, while a bluish azure leading colored white of the eyes indicates sexual exhaustion. The effects of vice in its extreme manifestations are marked and terrible. Ugliness and Satan are synonymous terms. Beauty is the robe of divinity itself, the privilege of angels. The expression imparted varies, of course, with kind and degree, but in every kind and degree is repulsive. Its general tendency is to depress the upper part of the cheeks and give undue prominence to the regions around and below the mouth, the effect of which is to impart a coarse and vulgar, if not sinister and fierce expression to the countenance. It follows from the propositions thus informally stated that any departure from moral rectitude or any indulgence in vicious habits or violent passions must have an unfavourable effect upon beauty, and that the cultivation of moral goodness, serenity of temper, and a life of obedience to the laws which govern our spiritual being will promote in the same degree our physical beauty and well-being. It is this culture and this orderly life which imparts to the superior portions of the face those rounded outlines and that rich and softened expression which render the countenance of a refined and amiable woman so lovely. In man, a similar development should be modified by a greater degree of fullness below and outward from the aim of the nose. Goodness of heart and purity of life cooperate with an expanded chest, wholesome air, copious breathing, and outdoor exercise, in imparting to the fair cheek the coveted roseate tinge. Quiet happiness, ease, and freedom from care are essential auxiliaries. Violent passions, mental or physical suffering, care and anxiety depress and bleach the cheek, and give a peculiarly haggard expression to the countenance. Whatever, then, is favourable to goodness, happiness, and ease is, in the same degree, favourable to health and beauty. The eyes first reveal himself. Nature made man so that he cannot be hidden. His badness or goodness inevitably emanates from his countenance, from his own biology. And from his biology, first and foremost, his soul quality will be revealed in his eyes. As they say, the eyes never lie. The eyes are directly connected to the brain, and thus the nervous system. Perhaps this is why we can get so much understanding just from the appearance alone. The eyes are important when it comes to the passions, both as a medium through which desire is expressed and as the channel through which external objects awaken that desire, as illustrated in the story of Adam and Eve and the forbidden fruit. The eyes unmistakably reveal the man with lust and lasciviousness in his heart. This was observed by Aristotle some 2,300 years ago, when he wrote, "It is proved that the passages of the body through which the residue is secreted have got obstructed and have closed up. For all of the regions in the head, the eyes are the most seminal, as is proved by the fact that this is the only region which unmistakably changes its appearance during sexual intercourse, and those who overfrequently indulge in it have noticeably sunken eyes. The reason is that the nature of the semen is similar to that of the brain. Its matter is watery, whereas its heat is a mere supplementary acquisition." Over 2 millennia later, 19th century physiologists provided detailed empirical observations that reinforce Aristotle's ancient insights. As Fowler describes, "Hollow, sunken, and half-ghastly eyes, the lids of which will frequently be tinged with red, while if his indulgence has been carried very far, he will have black and blue semicircles under his eyes, and also look as if worn out, almost dead for want of sleep, yet unable to get it. He will also have a half-wild, half-vacant stare, or a half-lascivious, half-foolish smile, especially when he sees a female. Consider the face of the devil and the sensualist. Both are noted for having a red complexion. An 1800s physiological text describes this. The complexion, especially indicating existing sexual conditions and therefore maternal excellences and defects. Those of both sexes who are vigorous and perfectly healthy sexually have a bright scarlet red in the middle of their cheeks, which vanishes off into pink, and then into a pure lily white, Yet those sexually feeble or impaired are either too pale or red, too dark or livid, or have a brownish, bluish, bloody muddy red, as Brigham Young's eldest, who ought to know, expressed it. When the system is in a perfectly healthy state, the whole face will be suffused with the glow of health and beauty, and have a red but never an inflamed aspect. Yet any permanent injury which prostrates the bodily energies will change this florid complexion into dullness of countenance, indicating that but little blood comes to the surface or flows to the head, with the corresponding stagnation of the physical and mental powers. Yet this dullness frequently gives way to a fiery redness, not the floridness of health, but the redness of inflammation or false excitement, which indicates a corresponding demoralization of the mental faculties. Many of the physical traits of the devil could be explained well in the context of physiognomy. Though we say this is an outdated practice, its fundamental concept that character shapes appearance actually carries much merit. More times than not in my own life, nasty characters have had a nasty countenance or appearance, and the good characters have looked good. Not only the physical traits, but also the expressions of the face, movements of the body, tone of the voice. Much of the character of the individual is infused into the physiology. The devil's character is morally corrupt, and as such his physiology reflects that. Remember, the devil, also called Lucifer, was originally one of God's angels in heaven. Tradition holds that he was the most beautiful of them all. After rebelling against God out of pride, he was cast from heaven, and his appearance came to be associated with evil and deformity. It was at this point he became known as Satan. The evil inside of Satan became enmeshed in his physiology. You can see it in his devious expression, in the shape and glint of his eyes, in his sharp angular features, his recessed hairline, and in the horns. Horns in animals are influenced by sex hormones, as is male pattern hair loss in humans. Aristotle thought the sensual man went bald or recessed because he was full of semen, while women, children, and eunuchs, unable to produce the seminal secretion, avoided hair loss for this reason. Know that if you focus your energies on sexual lust and desire, it will color your choices, shape your character, and eventually become you. People will not only feel it when they interact, they will see it in your face, in your movements, in your physiology. According to the Gnostic teachings, Satan resides within you and can be manifested. Perhaps the reasons the sensualist can often resemble these traits of the devil is because he is manifesting Satan from within himself. I want you, my friends, to know once and for all that such a devil of orthodox religions does not exist. The true devil is carried within each of you in his interior. If we wisely analyze what Satan is, the devil, Lucifer, if we comprehend that he is only the reflection of God within us, the shadow of the inner sun within each of us, located in the depth of our soul for our good, immediately and rightfully, we are doing justice to such a Gnostic sect. Ladies and gentlemen, the orthodox, dogmatic Satan of the clerical sects does not exist. The authentic Lucifer is within each person, and only in this manner can it be understood. Perhaps this idea is going to help you with avoiding the pools of lust. Be wary of what you are turning into. The pull of lust is not only pulling you to action, it's pulling you into a state. It is transforming you through degenerative and immoral practice into the image of a demon, of the devil. The lustful desire destroys all that is pure inside of you. It corrupts the soul and renders man an empty shell of his former self. It invites misfortune and much suffering. One Kabbalistic text writes, Semen is the strength of the body and the light of the eyes, and when it effuses in abundance, the body weakens and life is shortened. He who indulges in having intercourse ages quickly, his strength weakens, his eyes grow dim, a bad odor proceeds from his mouth, the hair of his head, eyelashes and brows fall out, while the hair of his beard, armpits and feet increase. His teeth fall out, and many other pains beside these befall him. The learned physicians said that 1 out of 1,000 die from other diseases, while 1,000 die from excessive cohabitation. Therefore, a man should be very careful about it. The sensualist also finds that his ability to exert his mind or ponder on deeper subjects is crippled by his preoccupation for sexual release. The desire for sex seems to impinge on one's desire for knowledge. It has also been noted that the man with an appreciation and talent for the fine arts gains dominion over his sexual desires. As he sets his sights on a higher beauty, he offsets the pull of his sexual nature. This group elevates and chastens the animal faculties, prevents the propensities, even when strong, from taking on the grosser sensual forms of action, and hence is rarely found in criminals, elevates even the moral sentiments, and constitutes a stepping stone from the animal to the moral, and a connecting link between the moral and the intellectual in man. It was said that man with a large appreciation for the higher arts would perfectly abhor the coarse, low, sensual, carnal, and animal action of the propensities, and follow after the beautiful and perfect in nature and art. And when these faculties are low in the man, he is more likely to be rude, uncultivated, contented with the few and plain articles of dress, furniture, property, etc., and prefer the rudeness of savage to the elegances of civic life. It was recommended, in order to cultivate this facility, man should associate with persons of wit, ingenuity, and refinement, visit galleries of art and mechanism, scenes of beauty and perfection, and read poetry and other works of the most polished and refined writers. We have often thought growing up that entertaining sexual thoughts was harmless to our mind. We have remained oblivious to the damage it may have had on our character, our morality, and our good judgment. We have been descending without knowing it. All of this comes down to a very simple choice we make. When we feel the pangs of sexual excitement, do we work to release it or work to retain it? That excitement we feel is the energy of life and swells inside of us. It is not meant for release, unless for the purposes of procreation. Your choice to release these valuable energies without cause is making a physiological statement on who you are as a human being. You are choosing pleasure over preservation. You are choosing self-fulfillment over service to humanity. And you are destroying the kingdom that God gave you. The choice you make here is a very deep, fundamental statement on your character, and such choices of character will reflect in your appearance. Persons generally look what they really are in character. A happy person looks very different from one that is unhappy. So a bright person has a very different look from one who is dull and stupid. A rash person looks and acts differently from a prudent one, an industrious man very differently from an idle man, a modest individual very differently from an immodest one, and so on. You need not be told who is the modest man and who the immodest. You see it in every movement. A murderer looks like a murderer all the world over. The desperado, the sensualist, the scold, the vicious, the virtuous, the honest, the dishonest, the brave, the cowardly, all look precisely as they are, for every faculty in its action has its natural language, be it perverted or not. A proud man looks, stands, talks and walks with importance, as if all wisdom, knowledge, and goodness were concentrated in himself. A vain person has a very different walk from a proud person. He puts on airs and wonders if anybody sees him, wants to do something that will attract attention. A rowdy acts like a rowdy. A young man from the country looks exactly like a young man from the country. A gentleman has all the ease and gracefulness that belongs to a gentleman, is manly under all circumstances, familiar enough to be easy and courteous in his manners, but not so as to breed contempt or lose his position in society. A fast man looks like a fast man. A firm man stands square and perpendicularly on his feet like a firm man. An affectionate, social individual shakes your hand in a warm-hearted, social manner and asks with such cordiality, "How are you, my good friend? I am glad to see you." Whereas the cold-hearted, cynical person gives you cold fingers to shake, then pulls them hastily away. All these characteristics are daily manifested by outward signs. We only need eyes to see them. How, then, can we remedy our lustful inclinations, so that they cease leaving their mark upon our countenance? It is not enough to merely suppress depraved thoughts and sensual inclinations. One must actively replace them. The mind cannot be left empty. Where lust once ruled, thoughts of love, appreciation, discipline, and kindness must be cultivated in its place. Morality would command far greater interest among the masses if it were widely understood that immorality does not remain hidden within the soul. It steadily works its way outward, etching itself into the face, dulling the eyes, and eroding the natural dignity of appearance. So how best to improve our nature? To begin with, we can all learn to develop appreciation. One simple practice that has helped me is this. When done over time, I believe it softens both the heart and the countenance. Each night before going to bed, think back over your day and find 3 things you can feel genuinely thankful for. It can be anything: a good meal, a moment of quiet, a conversation, something you read, a small insight, anything at all. Choose 3 and allow yourself to actually feel the gratitude, not just list it. These emotions are very powerful. They carry a lasting effect, and when practiced over time, begin to influence one's character. It is surprisingly easy to develop a deeper appreciation for life in this way, and as appreciation grows, the heart also softens. What takes place inwardly does not only remain there. In time, it expresses itself outwardly, in your temperament, in presence, and even in the face itself. I know this may sound like a strange concept to some, but much of what we find attractive in others lies not in their features, but in how those features are animated, and much of that animation is shaped by the emotional state of the person within. The most important emotion for beautifying one's countenance is love. Cliché as that may sound, love animates the face. It lights up the eyes. Over time, a loving person develops expressions and visual traits that align with his inner state. Just as we can often recognize warmth and goodwill in a face, we can also recognize coldness, bitterness, or emotional withdrawal by expression alone. The inner disposition inevitably works its way outward. Facial beauty consists in expression chiefly, which active love redoubles by increasing the action of all the faculties, and this lights up even plain features with a glow, a warmth, a flush, which loving eyes in beholders still magnify, so that those in love always think their loved ones charming, while reversed love renders even handsome features either sad and pitiable or else hardened, which pains and repels. A hearty sexuality beautifies form and face, to which love super adds a radiance really captivating. No face is ever worth that second look when saddened by disappointment. Active love draws all the facial lines upward, disappointment downward. Active love adorns the manners of gentlemen and ladies towards the opposite sex much more than does mere sexuality. A man and woman meeting in the ordinary walks and thoroughfares of life treat each other much more pleasantly than either would treat those of their own sex. Are not gallantry and ladylike behaviour beautiful? Their mutual regard, that which renders their manners pleasing, ripens into mutual friendship, which causes them to treat each other still more charmingly. Active love supervening on friendship makes him treat her still more kindly, tenderly, gallantly, ever ready to proffer his services, while she thanks him more prettily and behaves more agreeably than before. Humanity is by far the most beautiful when reciprocating love. Sunshine is on nothing as perfect or perfectly lovely as on the proper comportment of lovers towards each other, excepting that of affectionate husbands and wives, which is the most perfect of all, because prompted by the very highest phase of this sexual element. All lads and men who abuse themselves sexually become moody, apprehensive, frightened by mere shadows, think their state 10 times worse and harder to cure than it really is, are awfully haunted by the blues, irritable, dissatisfied, restless, and inexpressibly miserable. The blues may have other causes. Sexual errors and dilapidations are the main cause. One right sexually cannot have them, whilst those who are ailing here cannot help having them. So you who feel blue don't tell of it, or knowing listeners will spell out the cause, at least seem lively. The idea that emotions shape the face and appearance is one of the most deeply understood truths among people. We often see examples of men undergoing extreme transformations in appearance due to war or extended prison time, facing dangers, life and death situations, and other stresses severely affects the appearance of the individual, and sexual overindulgence has long said to be a significant, if not central factor in the deterioration of appearance. Even a retainer who is deeply engaged in moral thoughts and sexual fantasy will bear the signs of these thoughts on the face. They will also lead to other negative thoughts through the draining mental energy. Some will feel shame from such thoughts too. If one is practicing semen retention to purify themselves of this habit, then the purity of one's mind should be of highest priority. There is a deep biological meaning to the expression, "You become what you think about." Be careful with your thoughts. Good luck. Semen retention creates an attractive face. It is often reported, though the mechanisms behind it are not so deeply known. Let's explore this a little further. To create the conditions for a healthy-looking face, one must first establish the conditions for a healthy body. Among many factors, perhaps the most important is a healthy heart, as it transports blood, the vital life principle, to all areas of the body. It may come as a surprise to hear that testosterone, that is, the main sex hormone produced from the gonads, is synthesized from cholesterol. And cholesterol, despite the bad press it has received, is an essential building block of life and absolutely essential to the health and longevity of your being. We often divide cholesterol into LDL, the bad sort, and HDL, the good sort. Research has shown that higher testosterone levels suppress HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, which plays a critical role in heart health. Thus, elevated testosterone levels are often correlated with cardiac disease risk. In a 1992 study, researchers suppressed gonadal activity in 5 participants, which lowered their testosterone levels. while a control group maintained normal serum testosterone levels. They found that the group with suppressed gonadal activity experienced a significant increase in HDL cholesterol, which is beneficial for heart health. A man who is constantly stimulating the gonads with sexual activity is flooding his system with androgens, and it is this excess of androgenic activity that is said to reduce levels of good HDL cholesterol and thus increase the risk of coronary heart disease. How does this affect facial attractiveness? It is thought that deterioration of the heart is reflected in deterioration of the face. Reduced levels of HDL cholesterol are often a sign of malnourishment. Studies have found that malnourished individuals tend to have lower levels of HDL cholesterol. I believe this is why many writers of old often connected excessive sexual or masturbatory practice to facial wasting and unattractiveness of the face. The renowned Swiss physician of the 18th century, Dr. Tissot, wrote, "The first symptoms which occur in those addicted to this practice are, beside those already enumerated, a great loss of strength, extreme paleness, sometimes a slight but permanent yellowness, frequently pimples which disappear and are as constantly replaced by others. They show themselves in every part of the face, but particularly on the forehead, temples, and near the nose. Considerable emaciation. When the heart loses its functionality, the transport of nutrients often suffers, and this becomes most visually apparent in the face. I believe most are already somewhat aware of this fact, as we all know exercise makes us look better, especially in the face. That effect is of course the nutrifying effects of good circulation, as blood flow to the face delivers the nutrients required for good health, and thus its attractive appearance. In other words, poor conditions of the heart often impart poor conditions to the face. There is research to support this. I believe that much of the troubles people experience from sexual depletion comes from a depletion of the bloods. And when the bloods are in deficient supply, the other bodily systems and organs will suffer in both form and function. Here is one of the numerous accounts from the 1800s that drew on this connection between masturbation and the face. But another sign which masturbators show, and upon which the physician feels himself at liberty to rely with great certainty, is their facial aspect. What an interpreter of habits, practices, feelings, thoughts, and conditions of body and mind the human face may become. The angry man is seen and known to be angry quite as readily by looking at him in the face, as by any other manifestation which he may present. The dispirited or despairing individual is seen and known by the particular conditions which his face presents. The joyous, happy child shows its pleasurable emotions in the face. So the face becomes a reservoir in which may be garnered up and through which may be expressed all the feelings and intensities of which the individual is capable. The treacherous man, the lecherous man, the vain man, the overbearing egotist, the calm, resolute, well-balanced, self-sustained man, all may have their peculiar characteristics or conditions of mind portrayed with a good degree of exactness through their physiognomical expressions. When masturbation has been pursued sufficiently to have established between the sexual organism and the aspects of countenance a strong conditional sympathy, then the face comes out like a face on canvas under the touches of the artist, and shows not only the outlines of resemblance, but the great features of character. And what is as sad as anything can be, is that the one who wears this face comes to be conscious of its peculiarity of expression, and so a higher sensitiveness springs up and takes possession of him or her, until it forms a part in the exhibition of manners which such persons show. and adds quite a good deal to the certainty of the evidence thus accumulated, whereby to determine the secret vice to which they are victims. I think that I need but one look at a young man who indulges in this vice to determine the fact of such indulgence, as against all oaths or vows of innocence he can utter, though he should pile them up mountain high. Nature leaves her unmistakable traces of the sin of which he is guilty, and no asseverations to the contrary would have much influence with me. And if I were to give up my conclusions formed upon such signs as I have quoted above, of which the aspects of countenance form the climacteric, it could only be under such positive and determinate furnishment of evidence that these peculiarities were to be attributed to diseases of an entirely different kind from those which masturbation produces, and yet whose signs and symptoms do occasionally strongly simulate those which this terrible vice so surely creates. As written above, the signs of sexual depletion can be seen in the face. I think much of this comes down to blood. When the blood is diverted into one area, such as the testes, it draws that nutrition away from other areas. Areas with less blood become dysfunctional and degenerative over time. Such is the case of male pattern hair loss. Its origins lie in a lack of blood flow, and the physical response is the deterioration of these hairs. This usually occurs when excess testosterone and, as a byproduct, excess DHT is produced. And similarly, male pattern hair loss is linked to an elevated risk of cardiac events in future. That said, this should not cause undue worry if you are balding. The majority of men will experience some degree of hair loss in their lifetime, and heart-related illnesses remain the leading cause of death worldwide. Such is the natural course of life. But awareness can help us make informed choices to support both our health and appearance. I think this follows a similar line of logic to what the studies have found regarding testosterone and heart health. That is, increased sexual activity stimulates testosterone production. Elevated testosterone, as demonstrated in clinical studies, suppresses HDL cholesterol, the form of cholesterol most protective of heart health. Low HDL makes the heart work less efficiently, and since the face depends on good blood flow, poor circulation can cause it to look pale or lifeless, and even emaciated. Each step in this chain is supported by established biological mechanisms. While research hasn't yet connected them in a single study, the logical connection between these processes is clear and internally consistent. Physical excellence does not of itself produce a good mind and character. On the other hand, excellence of mind and character will make the best of the physique it is given. The thoughts you choose are molding you. As well hidden as you assume your thoughts to be, they are building the interior and exterior of your being. Your thoughts are not something that can be concealed from the world. Your physical attributes are largely influenced by your mental attributes. This is a well-studied branch of knowledge that has existed throughout the ages and has only in the last century been rejected by mainstream thought. The study of physiognomy, that of learning a person's inner landscapes through the indications of their outer appearance. I won't argue its validity here, but I will say that humans and animals use the underlying principles of physiognomy unconsciously in their everyday dealings with people. The expression, "Don't judge a book by its cover," perhaps comes to mind. But we must ask, why would this expression exist in the first place if it is not to indicate some natural instinct that humans draw from to form judgment? To judge a book by its cover. That seems to be hardwired inside of us all. Forming ideas and emotions about others based on sensory cues. When humans or animals are choosing potential mates and friendships, one's appearance gives us much biological and social information that will influence our decision to pursue that relationship or not. Not only does one's appearance reveal much about their state of health, in many cases we may get a glimpse into one's character and disposition via their appearance. A person feeding off of negative thoughts tends to appear negative. A person with evil intentions oftentimes can find themselves betrayed by their own appearance, as we get clues to the other's intention via visual cues. Conversely, a good-hearted, caring person will usually have that trait reflected in their face and expression. Our brains are amazing at picking up the small details of people that give us emotional responses to our interactions that we may not even be able to rationally explain. These flashes of intuition guide us greatly on making the decision to who we choose to interact with. Why does your character matter? Is it something to be changed? Or should we allow our character to flourish naturally and allow it to act on its own inclinations, be that good or bad? It is said that our conscious being exists within the universe. But if our mind is an object interpreting external stimuli, then is it not the universe that exists within our conscious being? If our sense perception begins with our mind, then is the universe not existing within our minds? The universe exists not as an independent body, but as an interaction with our being, our consciousness, and without the presence of this consciousness, matter has no need to take physical form. It remains in a state of unexpressed potentiality. In scientific terms, it is a state known as quantum superposition. Our consciousness and the universe we experience are a pairing that seem to rely on each other to exist. Without consciousness, there is no universe. The entire manifestation of all we sense is occurring through the internal recesses of our mind. It is not that you are seeing the trees unadulterated without interference. It is that your mind is being fed data that translates that information into what we know as trees. We could be receiving a complex sequence of zeros and ones for all we know, that our brain is computing into the sequence of images we call trees, into the experiences we call life. We do not definitively know the source of this raw data that is creating what we see and feel as the universe. As philosopher Gilbert Harman theorized, we may be nothing more than a brain in a vat. A brain connected up to a computer receiving data that we assume to be the real reflection of the reality we are experiencing. We can never be sure from our position that this isn't the case. I illustrate this idea not to go down the road of what is reality, but to highlight just how instrumental a role our mind plays in shaping this universe we are now immersed in. Your mind is not merely a participator in this universe. It is an essential component for the universe's existence. The way in which we interpret the signals reality feeds us will determine the experiences we have. This character we choose to embody, the lens we choose to see the world through, is a choice that can literally change the architecture of this reality we exist in. The way in which we choose to see things is referred to as our perspective. Your attitude to your life, your perspective, matters infinitely more to this universe than what we call objective reality. Nothing here is objective. Written in the early 1900s, that circumstances grow out of thought every man knows who has for any length of time practiced self-control and self-purification. For he will have noticed that the alteration in his circumstances has been an exact ratio with his altered mental condition. So true is this that when a man earnestly applies himself to remedy the defects in his character and makes swift and marked progress, he passes rapidly through a succession of vicissitudes. The soul attracts that which it secretly harbors, that which it loves, and also that which it fears. It reaches the height of its cherished aspirations. It falls to the level of its unchastened desires. and circumstances are the means by which the soul receives its own. Every thought seed sown or allowed to fall into the mind and to take root there produces its own blossoming sooner or later into act and bearing its own fruitage of opportunity and circumstances. The world encourages us to see our existence from the perspective of an infinitely small observer in an infinitely large universe without any real influence over the whole whatsoever. Many times you may have heard expressions about the universe's infinite vastness and man's cosmic insignificance, encouraging you to believe that you are a meaningless grain of sand in an ocean of space. This is a train of thought that will rob you of the potential power inherent within you. Your path in life is etched from your character. The way in which you view life dictates the type of life you will lead. Seeds of thought germinate into the structure of the reality you experience. More than external circumstance, it is your character and approach to your life that will unravel the outcome and reveal your destiny. Your circumstances will only limit you if you believe that they will. Be cautious of your chosen beliefs. Regardless of whether they are actually true or not, your mind will make the utmost effort to materialize those beliefs into your existence. Some of the most successful people on this earth came from nothing. Their lives weren't merely an inheritance. Their success was a statement of their character. We are constantly absorbing the environment. Our body works as a receptacle for all that we have experienced and have interacted with. We exist as walking representations of our life in physical form. All the people we talk with, the videos we watch, the philosophies we adopt, the books we read, the foods we eat, the physical environment that we inhabit, everything we come into contact with colors our state of being in profound ways. They are painted onto our faces. Our brain, our heart, the nervous system, our organs, the cells in our body, everything is influenced by experience. Even if we reject one form of stimuli, it helps reinforce the opposing idea, and our rejection thus serves the same purpose of molding us further into a particular direction. As a result, the thoughts and ways in which we live and things we choose to expose ourselves to manifest themselves into physical reality, into the person we are today. Character is destiny itself. As a fixed combination of deeds, it bears within itself the results of those deeds. These results lie hidden as moral seeds in the dark recesses of the character, awaiting their season of germination, growth, and fruitage. Be very aware of the thoughts you entertain. They in time become the essence of who you are. We may see thoughts as objects in a box that we can keep closed away from the world, yet they are more akin to seeds in the dirt, slowly growing into the being that you'll ultimately become. Engaging in violent activities will bring you into a life of violence. Engaging in criminal activities will bring you into a life of crime. Engaging in good deeds and lovingness will bring you into a life of love and good fortune. This is simple enough, yet often disregarded when one makes their day-to-day choices in life. We are all walking down a hallway where every decision reveals a staircase going up or going down, towards the higher realms and energies, love, compassion, calm spirits, or towards the lower realms, the animal energies, physical desire, lust, anger, hate. The staircase we choose alters the trajectory of our journey. It is these very choices we decide upon that are creating our reality in which we inhabit. We are constantly choosing new doors to walk through, which lead to new rooms and eventually a new life. These doors or choices are said to be connected to our next incarnation.
the energies we consolidate in this life directing us to the vessel of our next life. It is of the highest importance that we do our best to move towards the higher energies. For the most part, we move unconsciously through these doors, unaware of just how deeply each choice of thought is affecting our reality and destiny. What we are discussing here is the immutable law of cause and effect. Thoughts mold the direction of our future, and the quality of thoughts will dictate the quality of existence. If we become aware of the importance of our own thoughts over the physical world, we can understand how to better control circumstance in our life. We become able to manipulate the very fabric of our reality. These laws of cause and effect have been written about extensively by the ancients. It is the fundamental principle of the age-old concept of karma. Written in 1910, the root meaning of the word karma is action, and as every action contains inherently its coming effect, we thus get at its second meaning, and it is in this sense that the word is most frequently used, and so we frame a general working definition of karma. It is the law of cause and effect, absolutely inviolable in the mental, moral, and material worlds. Being so, it is infallibly the means by which we reap as we sow, so that no good deed can escape its reward, and no evil deed its fit penalty. By this law, our present character and development are the exact products of our past evolution from an embryonic and potential state through numerous and varied states and experiences. It follows, therefore, that our future is in our own hands, now to make or mar. This is a great fact to be cognizant of, and a mere knowledge of this law is sufficient to change our view of life and evolution. The secret within this knowledge may be thought of as follows. Take responsibility for your character, and your character will take responsibility for your destiny. As many others focus on the end point and doing anything it takes to get there, they may often neglect their fellow man and act only in self-interest and against moral principle. Such a frame of mind ignores a simple truth, that we are all connected, all from the same source, and that any selfish act committed against our fellow man is inevitably committed against ourselves. When you act out of selfish impulse to benefit yourself over somebody else, you're injuring yourself far worse than the benefit to be gained from that deed. Our being is very much molded by our deeds, and through our chosen path of goodwill or selfishness, our fate will be determined. The concept that a clean room makes a clear mind is very true. The environment of your physical world shapes the environment of your interior world. Every man's work, whether it be literature or music or pictures or architecture or anything else, is always a portrait of himself. And the more he tries to conceal himself, the more clearly will his character appear in spite of him. We are walking representations of all that we have experienced and interacted with. It shows in our face, our bodies, and in our character. It is imprinted into your aura. Your aura is not just an abstract word used by the mystics. It is a very real field that is generated from the magnetic energy of your heart. This energy is felt by those around you at varying levels. With every beat, the heart not only pumps blood, but also transmits complex patterns of neurological, hormonal, pressure, and electromagnetic information to the brain and throughout the body. As a critical nodal point in many of the body's interacting systems, the heart is uniquely positioned as a powerful entry point into the communication network that connects body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Your aura conveys much non-verbal information to others that mere language is unable to convey. When we meet someone for the first time and we start assessing their compatibility to us, Many times we sense a strong connection or feeling of harmony. Also, in other cases, we may feel a sense of repulsion to their energy or feel something that is a red flag. Such feelings are often difficult to put into words as they come from our deepest instincts rather than from rational observation. Things that have happened in your life become etched into you and are detectable by others around you. You may not even realize it most of the time. Others can sense non-verbal information about us through their nervous system. We can many times sense danger or instability in an individual, an intuitive feeling that our nervous system picks up on to warn us. These intuitive impulses act out of self-preservation to alert and protect us from potential dangers. There is now evidence that a subtle yet influential electromagnetic or energetic communication system operates just below our conscious awareness. Energetic interactions possibly contribute to the magnetic attractions or repulsions that occur between individuals and also affect social relationships. It was also found that one person's brainwaves can synchronize to another person's heart. Humanity operates as a continually self-organizing process, and this is why certain entities with shared values and energies will gravitate towards one another, whilst entities of opposing values and energy will likely be repelled. We see this process of organization so often on the individual level that we even have formed many such common use expressions in the English language. Real recognize real, and like attracts like. Birds of a feather flock together, and so on. We must be lucid to the fact that our thoughts ultimately manifest themselves physically. Thoughts form character, which form associations, which form circumstance, and ultimately form your destiny. One fundamental principle of good character is to not see our inherited disadvantages as obstacles in our life, but to develop the vision to see all negative aspects as something we must remedy in ourselves. As Seneca once wrote, "For what else are you busied with except improving yourself every day, laying aside some error and coming to understand that the faults which you attribute to circumstances are in yourself? We are indeed apt to ascribe certain faults to the place or to the time, but those faults will follow us no matter how we change our place." Every perceived disadvantage we have been given in life carries with it an underlying benefit available to only those perceptive enough to see it. We can always use a negative condition to our advantage if we are able to recognize what advantages are included in this perceived negative. In many cases, a man who becomes blind gains an exceptional auditory sense which far exceeds his fellow man's ability. With his developed sense of impeccable hearing, he can go forth to create great work in this world. The developed sensitivity of one sense due to the lack of another can be honed into a superpower. The advantage provided must be realized. Perhaps it is not the most desirable condition, yet it is one's response to the condition that will determine whether it's of benefit or of misfortune. It is not the external condition, but the internal perception that paves the way. A person who can find the seeds of good within any given ordeal or disaster is practicing good character and thus moving towards the path of good fortune. Try this mode of thinking for yourself. Think of a recent perceived negative experience in your life. Go through that experience and see if you can find some seeds of fortune within that experience. They are most definitely there if you search for them. Think through the negative and flip it. Find the threads of opportunity that lie within your perceived problem. You will always find that when one door closes, another door opens. This is a golden skill. Not many people are capable of this, and you may be reluctant, but try sincerely to find out just how much of an opportunity you can gain from your recent hardship. Within that hardship, no matter what it is, lies a seed of opportunity. Can you find it? Once you find the benefits, snap your fingers in that instant, wholeheartedly decide to change your mind. It was a blessing in disguise. This situation and my response to it is leading me to the fortune I am seeking. It was a door that had to close so that the door I'm seeking could be opened. Simply believe in this. I assure you it is true. Much of man's greatness and achievements have been forged through pain and misfortune. Painful experience is in many instances the necessary catalyst to push someone into the realms of greatness. One's response to adversity when it hits will ultimately dictate the truth of their character. Welcome adversity with open arms. Embrace it. A person with good character is wise enough to see the lessons in their misfortune and to use it as fuel to keep going. To shoulder hardship willingly and appreciate the lessons and experience it provides. As the old proverb goes, out of the hottest fire comes the strongest steel. It is the misfortune that will bring you fortune, that will forge your character, that will strengthen your will and ability to overcome any obstacle for the sake of your life's purpose. Instead of wishing for softer circumstances, wish to strengthen yourself. Adversity is your teacher. Strive to become stronger. Softer circumstances inevitably make one softer. The Stoics used to practice voluntary discomfort to prepare themselves for adversity, to deeper appreciate what they have and ultimately to make themselves stronger and more comfortable with discomfort. Upon retirement of work life, many have undergone a fast decline in mental faculties and physical health. An early retirement leading to an early death. It is a tendency reported by many the world over, particularly in men. Studies have indicated a more rapid decline upon early retirees compared to their later retiring counterparts, and from such a phenomenon we can see the life-extending benefits of work. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work. As a human being, what do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for? The things I was brought into this world to do. Or is this what I was created for, to huddle under the blankets and stay warm? When life becomes painful and difficult to bear, step back. Realize this is all theatre. You have a front row seat to this theatre you chose to come and see. There are characters, plot lines, story arcs, bad guys and good guys. A fluctuating storyline of fortunate and misfortunate events occurring oftentimes without any action on your own part. It is all happening in front of your eyes as you participate as a character in this story. You are in the middle of this whole affair. You don't have the knowledge of how to get to Earth, yet somehow you came here. Isn't it amazing? You are unable to build a pair of lungs, yet you have a pair of lungs that you built. You don't know the mechanics of the heart pumping blood, yet you, your body, created one and carry out its function so seamlessly without thought, and have been doing so your whole life. All these tools that allow you to exist in the physical realm are vastly beyond your own avatar's current level of comprehension. Yet they have been gifted to you to navigate through this reality. When we see the extent and scale in which we are being supported in this life, that things are moving along just perfectly, accomplishments, tragedies, and all, we can relax a little and just go along with the course of things. By not worrying what will happen to us, we free up energy to care about the well-being of others, and paradoxically, this concern for others will help us in finding our own way and achieving what we are here to do in this lifetime. I hope this isn't all getting too spiritual and metaphysical. To put simply, love thy neighbor, care about others. All of the pain and anguish going through you is not being broadcast to the world, so imagine that even the ones closest to you may be going through such hardships, or even worse, without you knowing a thing about them. It is not your job to find those things out, but you have the opportunity to make their life more pleasant and worth living. To show even a little love can bring someone back from the depths of despair that they may be experiencing. To brighten someone's day who has spent the night steeped in dark thoughts and sadness. To show love to your fellow human who may have felt that not a single soul cared for their existence. The ones you love and care for will someday die. And if you're still here, you will look back on all those interactions you had with them and wonder if you had given them the love and support they so very much needed. There are still people around you now. Provide them with the love and support that they need. Offer them your undivided attention. Offer your ear if they wish to speak to you, and realize how special they are. Life is very fragile and can be taken at any time. This deep respect for life is what will develop your good character. Look after each other with the knowledge that the world is looking after you.
Most people never think about how their skin is directly tied to their sexual habits. But your hormonal balance, and by extension your skin health, depends heavily on what's going on in your gonads. Think about it. Why do skin issues often show up during puberty, at a time when the reproductive organs are activated? That's not a coincidence. Your reproductive system isn't separate from your appearance. It shapes it. In this video, I'm going to break down why semen retention could actually improve your complexion and slow down the process of aging. I will try to follow common logic using supporting research and share my personal experience. The skin is a mirror of what's happening inside our body. It especially reflects the state of our hormonal balance. Take conditions like alopecia and PCOS. Both reveal how dysfunction in the gonads can directly shape the health of our skin and hair. For example, PCOS floods the body with excess male hormones, triggering oily skin and acne. Meanwhile, androgenic alopecia often springs from androgen receptors being overstimulated by gonadal secretions. These aren't just isolated issues, they're clear proof that our reproductive health and hormone regulation are deeply intertwined with the way we look on the outside. In fact, in animals, it was found that halting gonadal activity cured their alopecia. If you need any more proof of this connection, simply consider the skin type of the man versus the woman. As a child, their skin is no different, though as puberty commences and the introduction of hormones begin, changes in the skin begin to occur. Often rougher skin develops in the male, particularly around the facial region. Acne too is not uncommon. The testicular secretions don't only operate during sex, they work to secrete hormones continuously throughout the day. And in those with a higher libido, this secretion system is even more active, often resulting in greater androgen production overall. When we ejaculate frequently, our body is continuously needing to replenish these stores of energy, as the human body prioritizes our fertility, even at the expense of our long-term survival. The body goes to great lengths to replenish this substance. The notion that the loss of these sexual substances is negligible does not seem to be based on any particular research or evidence that I am currently aware of, and it defies common logic. The logic being that what truly separates a man and a woman biologically is the reproductive system, and it is the man who lives a shorter life. Thus, the male reproductive system must play a role in this shortened lifespan. As we have seen in longevity studies in eunuchs, This shortened lifespan seems to be connected, at least somewhat, to gonadal activity. Thus, if it were negligible, I doubt this difference in lifespan between those with gonads and those without would be so stark in contrast. Also, summer theory in biology supports the notion that gonadal activity is very costly on the organism. Semen retention reduces the activity and secretions of the testes. By how much is of course dependent on the person, as some retainers keep up with edging and sexual stimulation, while other retainers completely abstain from sexual stimulation altogether. As someone who has suffered from eczema and alopecia, I have recognized flare-ups to often occur during periods of sexual activity and have noticed improvements during times of sexual abstinence. I have no proof here, though my own anecdotal experience makes me believe this connection to be so. Also, we know that excess DHT is linked to alopecia and skin troubles, and according to various studies, higher levels of DHT were present in people who have a higher frequency of sexual activity. Given this, it would make sense that semen retention naturally modulates DHT. If frequent sexual activity raises DHT levels, and excess DHT contributes to skin issues and hair loss, then less sexual stimulation would reduce the hormonal drive behind those problems. The more you stimulate and ejaculate, the more the system is forced into output mode. When you stop, the pressure subsides. You take the load off the glands and let the body settle. In my own experience, complete abstinence, that is, no edging or stimulation, coincides with clearer skin and less irritation on the scalp. There's been a noticeable difference in my own case. The inflammation fades, the face looks clearer, and has more of a glow. When the testes aren't being constantly triggered to secrete and rebuild, the system is less burdened. Biologists have long known that reproduction comes at the cost of longevity. In line with summer theory, reproduction, and for men in particular, excess gonadal activity, has been connected with senescence, that is, aging of the organism. And we know that aging is most recognized in the quality of the skin. Aged skin loses moisture and suppleness, becomes wrinkled and discolored. It destroys one's aura of youthfulness. The skin is reflecting the state of the organism. That is why, to stay looking young, we must consider what habits prematurely age the organism, and at the top of this list, I would assert sexual activity as the biggest factor to determine rate of aging. They say smokers die on average 10 years earlier, though looking at one of the few studies on eunuch lifespans, we can see that they lived on average 14 to 19 years longer than their non-eunuch counterparts. That's around 38% longer in some cases. Of course, eunuchs suffered all kinds of negative physiological issues due to hormonal disruption, however, and castration would be a terrible misfortune for anyone to have to undergo. It is in no way recommended. However, the reduction in sexual activity and testicular function does suggest there may be some biological merit to the idea that limiting reproductive activity could slow down the aging process. And this would be most reflected in the face. The face is where we most easily judge one's age and biology. Interestingly, eunuchs were often described as having soft, smooth, almost ladylike skin. This may be due to their lack of androgen production, particularly testosterone and DHT, which are secretions of the testes. These hormones are known to weaken the skin's barrier by reducing ceramide levels and increasing sebum production, leading to irritation, acne, and water loss. Without an excess of these secretions, the skin is better able to retain moisture and maintain its structural integrity, giving it a healthier and more youthful appearance. Again, it's worth noting that too little testosterone has its downsides as well. So rather than no test, we're simply advocating for avoiding excess. For those that are constantly in a sexually aroused state, I suspect the onset of skin issues to be more common. That is because excess DHT is a key factor in androgenic alopecia, and as mentioned previously, there is evidence to suggest DHT is linked to higher sexual frequency and activity. Conversely, medicines that lower DHT also usually lower your sexual arousal. So I think there is some logic there between over-arousal and skin condition. From this theory and from my own personal experience, I think semen retention makes one's face look fresh, the skin smoother, the eyes clearer. It gives an overall impression of youthfulness and vitality. The signs of life are stronger in the face of a man conserving his semen. And this means attractiveness is enhanced too in the retainer. I have never looked better or had a better response from women than when retaining. When the reproductive system is constantly in an active state, it carries an energetic burden, and that manifests this burden in the appearance. This sexual feeling, of course, is also man's strongest tool when controlled. It is the force that compels men into action. It adds virility to his being. It inspires all acts of bravery. It is attributed to all songs of beauty. It is this desire for sexual communion that heightens all of man's senses and attributes to the highest level. It is absolutely vital to his constitution. So please make the distinction in your mind between a healthy sexuality and an overactive one. A healthy sexuality is vital. Sexuality is circulating through your whole body. You can feel it as an energy. You can feel it as a tickle in the belly, through the arms and legs. It is circulating through the blood. I believe this state will keep the skin looking its best, with the sexual feeling in check but not perverted. Written in the 1800s. They have a pallid, bloodless complexion, hollow, sunken and half-ghastly eyes, with a red rim around the eyelids, and black and blue semicircles underneath. They appear so haggard, as if worn out, almost dead from lack of sleep, yet unable to get it. If badly impaired, they may exhibit a half-wild, vacant stare, or a half-lascivious, half-foolish smile, especially when they see a female. This is often accompanied by a certain quickness yet indecision of manner, beginning to do one thing, stopping, attempting another, and then returning to the original task, even in utterly insignificant matters like deciding where to place a hat. Undue redness of the face signifies that this vice has become chronic. Since it is terribly inflammatory, it generates a darkish, livid, brownish red tone all over the face and neck, along with a puffiness, as if fat or bloated. This is not the bright, healthy scarlet red of vigorous lung action, but a dull, leaden redness that signifies inflammation. Not that this kind of redness is always caused by the vice. Facial eruptions, excessive brain activity, or a feverish state of the whole system may also produce it, but self-abuse in youth often leads to this kind of redness in adulthood. Glassy, vacant, soulless eyes and a repulsive countenance also commonly accompany it. Any unnatural habit is bound to manifest an unnatural consequence, for nature always reveals the man. You cannot live in a state of sexual pervertedness without it coloring your constitution. Your skin is perhaps the most visually recognizable organ of your body, and thus people can get much insight into the quality of thoughts and habits through the appearance of your skin. We pay little attention to a wilted flower, and we avoid vegetables with discolored leaves. This same instinctive repulsion often carries over into our interactions with other people. When someone's complexion is off, others tend to sense, quite literally, that something is off about them. Beware of this connection and take responsibility for your thoughts, as they will inevitably color your whole being. And in time, everyone will know exactly the kind of person you truly are. Habits and lifestyles that put a physiological burden on the organism will often, over time, become reflected in the face. We can see this in the face of an alcoholic, a smoker, a glutton, a drug addict, and so on. The burden that these habits place on the organism manifests as discordance and imbalance in the facial features and the skin complexion. Another habit that I believe affects the face is the habit of masturbation. A masturbator's face. Someone losing their semen on a regular basis is placing a burden on their body, as the body must work to constantly replenish these substances. Some have argued that this burden is negligible, though many in the field of science and biology have written of the deep physiological value of semen and the physiological effects of orgasm and reproductive activity. The SR manuscript, 2 years of writing and research on the topic of semen retention. If you wish to physically own the works of the ancient archives, then this book is for you. People practicing semen retention regularly report an improvement in both facial aesthetics and overall attractiveness. Throughout history and up until modern times, many proverbs existed outlining the deleterious effects of masturbation on the organism. Expressions such as "masturbation makes you blind," "masturbation leads to insanity," "masturbation stunts your growth." These are often disregarded today, but one must ask, if such proverbs existed for so long, then are they not at the very least worthy of deeper investigation? Many writings of the past wrote extensively on the effect of masturbation and its relation to appearance. Written in the 1800s. The amorous man has a lascivious expression of the eyes and lips, and always manifests sexual curiosity when he observes females, and often turns to look at them. Or when anything is said about the other sex, he acts or laughs as if something very curious or wanton or vulgar had been said, and relishes it, because he always looks at everything through glasses of lust. Or else he unequivocally condemns and denounces everything appertaining to this subject, especially by way of obviating this evil as foul and filthy, because to him it is so. The private sensualist may be further known by his pallid, bloodless countenance and hollow, sunken, and half-ghastly eyes, the lids of which will frequently be tinged with red, while if his indulgence has been carried very far, he will have black and blue semicircles under his eyes, and also look as if worn out, almost dead for want of sleep, yet unable to get it. He will also have a half-wild, half-vacant stare, or half-lascivious, half-foolish smile, especially when he sees a female. He will also have a certain quickness, yet indecision of manner, will begin to do this thing and then stop and essay to do that, and then do what he first intended. And in such utterly insignificant matters as putting his hat here or there, the same incoherence will characterize his expressions, and the same lack of promptness mark all he does. Little things will agitate and fluster him, nor will he be prompt or resolute or bold or forcible, but timid, afraid of his own shadow, uncertain, waiting to see what is best, and always in a hurry, yet hardly knowing what he is doing or wants to do. Nor will he walk erect or dignified, as if conscious of his manhood and lofty in his aspirations, but will walk and move with a diminutive, cringing, sycophantic, inferior, mean, self-debased manner, as if depreciated and degraded in his own eyes, thus telling you perpetually by his shamed looks and sheepish manner that he has been doing something low, mean, contemptible, and vulgar. His secret practices have been impaired, both his physical and mental manhood, and thereby effaced the nobleness and efficiency of the masculine, and deteriorated his soul. besides having ruined his body. Be entreated, O foolish and wicked, not thus to dethrone the man and enthrone the animal. In my own experience, I have noticed this lascivious or sensual expression in the faces of those I've worked with who are preoccupied with sex. I remember one colleague who would constantly make sexual innuendos and alter his behavior in the presence of a woman. I think it's fair to say that many of these proclivities are subtly reflected in a person's appearance, if one is perceptive enough to recognize them. I have also noticed from personal observation that my face looked healthier when not engaging in sex or masturbation, compared to the days when I did. I've observed traits such as dark circles under my eyes, an unhealthy complexion, emaciation, lackluster hair, and an overall appearance of unattractiveness, especially when contrasted with the days or weeks I've gone without. If I had to put all these symptoms together, I would say it manifests as an aged appearance. Why would an excess of sexual activity have any effect on the appearance? One thing we know about aging is that, over time, subcutaneous fat decreases. As a result, adipose fat, the body's overall fat, undergoes significant changes, particularly in the face. The reduction in subcutaneous fat leads to a more hollowed appearance, especially in areas like the cheeks, temples, and under the eyes, creating a sunken or gaunt look. Sex hormones are synthesized from cholesterol, so individuals who engage in frequent sexual activity may be using more of their cholesterol reserves for this purpose. We have seen in numerous studies that during the mating season, various animals undergo muscle catabolism and fat loss, which has been attributed to processes such as gonadal activity. It is feasible that over time, such a process could accelerate the depletion of fat stores in humans too, potentially explaining the sunken face or emaciated look often associated with frequent sexual activity. Hippocrates maintained that emaciation indicated the atrophy of the spinal cord. Celsus supports the views of Hippocrates and maintains that atrophy of the spinal cord is the immediate source of emaciation and the legitimate consequence of abnormal emissions produced by masturbation. Hoffman says, "The onanist loses his strength after frequent seminal evacuations. The body gets thin, the face pale, the memory blunted or lost, and a continual coldness seizes the limbs. The face becomes idiotic, the voice hoarse, and in short, the whole body is reduced to atrophy and sleeplessness. Restlessness and tormenting dreams are the usual concomitant symptoms." Written over 250 years ago in the 1700s, the semen virile is a fluid of the most elaborate and noble production in the whole body, except that of the nerves. If such there be, and it is this vital fluid which makes men hot, robust, hairy, of a strong and deep voice, bold and courageous, and fit to contrive or execute any enterprise. Men are proof of this, whereas those who are destitute of vital seed are wrinkled, pale, weak, of a high voice, without hair, beardless, and effeminate. Such are eunuchs. For we know from experience, when the secretory organs of this juice are destroyed by castration before the time of puberty, as is frequently done in Italy to preserve the voice, or if by any accident a man is deprived of his testicles after this age, the destruction of these marks of virility also follows. Although the voice is not a visual feature of the face, it escapes from the mouth and profoundly impacts how others perceive us, especially in terms of attractiveness and mate selection. It reveals much about a person's physiological state, from hormone levels to muscle composition and more. Often, just the tone of one's voice can provide the listener with a visceral sense of attraction or repulsion toward the speaker. This connection between the face and masturbation brings us to the possible connection between semen retention and improved facial appearance. I believe this in my own experience to be true, as do many others who report their experiences with SR. I think a healthy-looking face is in large part the result of a body that is well nourished. Nourishment comes from bloods, and it is said in Ayurvedic medicine that semen is the quintessence of the blood, and thus the conservation of it keeps us young and healthful. It is the liquid essence of life itself. Sivananda writes, "My dear brothers, the vital energy, the vira, strength, power, energy, courage, that supports your life, which is the prana of pranas, which shines in your sparkling eyes, which beams in your shining cheeks, is a great treasure for you. Remember this point well. Virya is the quintessence of blood. 1 drop of semen is manufactured out of 40 drops of blood. Mark here how valuable this fluid is. A tree draws the essence or rasa from the earth. This essence is circulated throughout the tree, its twigs, branches, leaves, flowers, and fruits. The shining colors and life in the leaves, flowers, and fruits are due to this rasa. Similarly, the vira, that is manufactured by the cells of the testes out of blood, gives color and vitality to the human body and its different organs. According to Ayurveda, semen is the last dhatu, that is formed out of food. Out of food is manufactured chyle. Out of chyle comes blood. Out of blood comes flesh. Out of flesh comes fat. Out of fat comes bone. Out of bone comes marrow. And out of marrow comes semen. These are the sapta dhatus, or the 7 dhatus that support this life and body. Mark here how precious is semen. It is the last essence. It is the essence of essences. The vira comes out of the very marrow that lies concealed inside the bones. Just as bees collect honey in the honeycomb drop by drop, so also the cells of the testes collect semen drop by drop from the blood. Then this fluid is taken by the 2 ducts or tubes to the vesiculae seminalis. Under excitement, it is thrown out by special ducts, called ejaculatory ducts, into the urethra, where it is mixed with the prostatic juice. Semen is found in a subtle state in all cells of the body, just as sugar is all-pervading in the sugarcane, butter in milk, so also semen is pervading the whole body. Just as the buttermilk is thin after the butter is removed, so also semen is thinned by its wastage. The more the wastage of semen, the more is the weakness. In the Yoga Sastras it says, "Falling of semen brings death. Preservation of semen gives life." Semen is the real vitality in men. It is the hidden treasure in man. It imparts Brahma tejas, divine radiance or fire, to the face and strength to the intellect. From Sivananda's understanding, we can see how the beauty of the face, its radiance and vitality, are a direct reflection of the preservation of this vital energy, this life force. Thus, conserving this precious fluid allows the individual to maintain their vitality, reflected in a youthful appearance, glowing skin, and a sharpened intellect, all of which are outward manifestations of the inner power and life force sustained by preserving virya. I think this perspective very much complements the old writings warning of excessive masturbation and its effects on the appearance. Both perspectives recognize the value of conserving these fluids or this energy. It should be noted that a deterioration in your facial appearance is often connected to deterioration of the organism, and thus habits and practices that preserve our organism should in theory preserve your youthfulness and beauty. We need look no further than the castrated animal to see that the restriction of the male reproductive act influences longevity. Women who also do not lose semen live longer than men across almost all species. Semen is life, and evidence of your conservational efforts of this vital fluid will be revealed in the appearance of your face. Semen retention makes your face more attractive. This is perhaps one of the most contentious statements regarding the practice, and many argue that there is simply no evidence in support of this. I think there is strong evidence that semen retention improves the face, gives you a more youthful appearance and attractive look. I will present this evidence to you as clearly and logical as possible. The first major facial advantage a retainer has over a sensualist is youthfulness. Youth is a major component of facial attractiveness and underlies many of the specific characteristics people look for in judging attractiveness. A man retaining his semen also retains his germline cells, that is, the cells in the body responsible for reproduction. Use of the germline accelerates aging, and halting or removal of the germline slows aging. This has been found across multiple studies and forms the basis of germline theory, which I have explained in depth in previous videos. A man that ages slower retains his youthful appearance for significantly longer. If you take two twins, the first twin sexually abstains and does not utilize the function of his germline, whilst the other twin releases daily, keeping his germline cells in constant use. According to biology, that releasing twin will age faster. In some organisms, removal or ablation of the germline has almost doubled the life expectancy of the organism. In a study on Korean eunuchs, the halting of the germline, which castration entails, resulted in an increased lifespan of 14 to 19 years. Given the average lifespan at that time, this could be up to 40% longer life. When a man is on the path to a 40% longer life, try to visualize his progression of aging compared to a man who will live 19 years less. The shorter-lived man's rate of aging would be accelerated. In comparison to his long-lived twin, he would appear to age before his time. The signs of youth would fade more quickly, and the signs of degeneration and aging would set in sooner. Naturally, this would result in lower attractiveness, and the face is the most telling indicator of this degeneration, for it is the face we first look to when judging someone's approximate age. It reveals the most information. Again, to clarify, in historical medicine, consumption was the term often used for what we now call tuberculosis, but it also had a much broader meaning that was often used: a premature wasting of the organism. Consumption was known as the wasting disease. Masturbation and sexual activity were thought to consume the germline cells, and germline theory suggests that the use of these reproductive resources accelerates aging. For men in particular, gonadal activity is believed to speed up degeneration. In line with what both germline and summer theories imply, this could be considered premature aging. In the past, those who aged prematurely were often diagnosed with consumption. Interestingly, many of the old books on semen retention cited consumption as a result of self-pollution, that is, masturbation. So, in short, by conserving the germline, a man slows his aging, retains his youthful features, and his face naturally appears more attractive. We come into the world with a certain amount of vitality measured out to us as our inheritance, which, other things being equal, determines the length of our lives. When this is consumed, we cease to live. It may be properly consumed, or it may be squandered, either by a slow process or suddenly by some unwise act. Every thought we think, every movement we make, every emotion we indulge in, every stroke of work we do, uses up a certain amount of this vitality. This, however, is a necessary consumption. Every time we violate a law of health, we consume a portion of vitality. Insofar, we help to break down our constitution. Every cold we take makes us less able to stand exposure, and weakens the parts affected. Every sickness, every overstrained nerve, every overburdened organ, every departure from nature's laws encroaches upon our vitality, weakens the constitution, and finally breaks down the health. Each organ of the body has a separate work, yet each is designed by a wise creator to cooperate with all the others for the good of the whole body. Any single act or any habit that interferes with the normal action of any organ injures not only that organ and restricts its function, but also impedes the work of the body as a whole. Any act or habit that interferes with the complete development of the body or any of its parts will affect the activity of the brain and energy of the mind and will, making them weak and sluggish. Someone has said, "A sound mind in a sound body is sound logic," which statement sounds perfectly reasonable. This connection to sexual activity draining the vital powers was noted in previous eras by many writers. One book from the 19th century wrote, "What then must be expected from the terrible sin of masturbation or self-pollution? Just at the time when nature requires, imperatively requires, every part and particle of its sustenance and support, the greater portion is drained off and lost. This cannot continue long without painful consequences, and the system speedily becomes debilitated, and then still less able to go on with the great work on hand." Let us once more examine the actual results of this disgusting habit. From it arises debility, pallor, nervousness, loss of sleep, confusion of ideas, aversion to exercise, listlessness, idleness, pains in the head, melancholy, forebodings, voracity, fear, and loss of memory. How then, I would ask, can any man, how then can anyone expect nature to work under such disadvantages? Sleep, that great restorer, whose effects act like charms upon the body and mind, cease to soothe and invigorate the wretched onanist's body, rather by its fitfulness and fever acting as an exhausting object. Exercise, so necessary to the young, is partially or wholly neglected by the victim, whilst that activity and buoyancy of spirit, so necessary to enliven and push on the works of nature, is dead, sullen, and gloomy. The consequence of all this is that if the wretched victim escape the actual immediate punishment attendant upon his excesses, he grows up to be a man, but with his vital agents already weakened and ready to fall into the jaws of disease in whatever shape it comes. And when we consider how mere inattention and carelessness may superinduce this terrible affection, how much more certain will it be in its effects upon those who by actual self-abuse have weakened and impaired every part and parcel of their godlike frames. Let everyone in every walk of life remember this great truth, that nature will demand a terrible retribution upon all who abuse her. If you contain yourself temperately and soberly, obeying her laws and respecting her dictates, she will then be to you a guard and a defense. When sickness or accident overtakes you, she will be the first to bear you back to health and happiness. But if you abuse her, not only will she be apt not to defend you when assailed, but she may even herself be the first to deliver you up passively to the first vital affection which may attack you. Let man, and especially let youth, preserve with care the greatest treasure Providence can give, and then bestow that same robust health to his offspring. Another major advantage of retaining testicular secretions is the increased capacity to invest in secondary male sex traits. One thing we should know about a man's manly traits is that they are a very costly investment to his organism. In fact, this is perhaps why men usually die before women. The single biggest energetic cost of the manly traits is his musculature. Muscle tissue is costly to build and maintain, and because men naturally carry more lean mass due to testosterone, their bodies burn more calories daily just to sustain it. The testosterone increase that drives male behaviors, such as aggression and libido, are also highly costly to the organism. An often overlooked fact of testosterone is that it is highly costly to maintain, and it induces more oxidative stress in higher levels than in those with lower levels. The burden of testosterone is significant, and though low testosterone is also detrimental, excess testosterone is many times more degenerative. We see this in biology, where males often degenerate during mating season due to excess gonadal activity and testosterone production. In contrast, low testosterone is far less harmful, producing only minor effects such as slightly higher bone loss. And if testosterone is a burden, one may wonder then, why are high test men more valued and often seen as more attractive in society? That is because a man who develops naturally high test traits displays his body's abundance of vital energy to sustain such traits. That is, his high test is a sign that his organism is strong enough to handle the burden of developing such traits, and is thus healthy, strong, and an ideal candidate for reproduction. Those born of a weaker constitution do not develop the manly traits to the same degree simply because their bodies cannot afford to expend extra resources towards those traits. A weakened organism may need to invest more in the summer, that is, the cells, bloods, and organs. To clarify an often confused point here, this is not to say that low testosterone is healthy, but rather that high testosterone is costly, and only men with a strong enough constitution can naturally sustain it and develop masculine traits, though effort and training can allow others to build muscle as well. Although testosterone carries a physiological burden on the organism, masculine physical characteristics in men are positively correlated with measures of long-term medical health, as the men that often develop these traits are of stronger body constitution to start with. In countries where survival and health outcomes are lower, attractiveness to higher testosterone males appears to be stronger. In countries where health markers and longevity are higher, this attraction to high test males appears to be lower. This has been observed in cross-cultural studies comparing preferences for high testosterone males and national longevity data. It's also interesting to note that populations with lower average testosterone often exhibit higher longevity, whereas populations with higher average testosterone tend to have lower longevity. Again, if we have two twins and one releases while one abstains, the one conserving his reproductive energies should have more to contribute towards the development of his secondary sex traits, whereas the one depleted in secretions would become more feminized. There is no conclusive proof here, but there is plenty of evidence. Those that do not produce testicular secretions, such as castrates, were historically known for becoming more feminine. In some historical accounts, certain indigenous communities would assign a female role to a selected male, and through practices such as repeated ejaculation, he could become more effeminate, both physically and in character. You may notice that some men around you look very masculine and perhaps more attractive than the average man. What we often overlook is that to develop these masculine traits requires much of our vital energy. Greater reproductive investment drives higher testosterone production, and testosterone drives the growth of male traits. pulling energy from the germline system and the summer. The more you invest in reproduction, the more energy you burn, and the faster you age. Many writings of the past attributed the man who was young in years but old in appearance to be affected by the consequences of excessive sensuality. Though this isn't a mainstream view today, much of the aforementioned biology does support this view. The semen being out of the body, the sexual penalty comes apace. The penalty for this loss of semen is so far-reaching and so concealed from the body of people of the present day that we do not know the exact spots to look for it. But we tell you, when you see paralysis, palsy, apoplexy, rheumatism, brain softening, bent shoulders and haggard face, when you observe a young old man and the dried-up young lady, in all of these cases and in dozens of others, you may set it down that there have been sexual losses and a waste of the bodily substance from the sexual orgasm. You will see this penalty all around you, and there is no place where you may go but you will see the fruits of this sexual indulgence to excess. The penalty may be denied, and all these diseases may be attributed to every other cause under the sun, but you will be right in laying it at the proper place, and that is to the sexual drain which has sapped the blood corpuscles of the victim before you. We assure you nothing can be so very enervating as this sexual excess, and any sexual mating is an excess, providing it is not for the purpose of having children. The penalty for the disobedience of this law is in the shortened lives and the increased amount of disease which are everywhere around us. We must understand that any practice that works to shorten our life will induce the signs of aging and unattractiveness faster. If reproductive activity is shortening our lifespan, then it is also deteriorating our looks. We will look old, more worn out, more haggard, and overall less attractive when depleting this energy. This is not some bold, controversial statement. If you look at the principal concepts as discussed in biology, it is simply a logical conclusion. For those looking to preserve their youthful appearance and attractiveness, then the avoidance of needless reproductive expenditure should be deeply considered. You are paying for the use of your sexual energy with your own life.